sport fans watching around the world. This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Let's get straight into the episode.
Yeah, we heading for the sun. Shawty got my high, I ain't tripping for the funds. Yeah, I won't start, I ain't tripping, I'm a stun.
Alright y'all, today's a Monday and Mondays are for Docs. Thank you for clicking or tapping in that start today's spew. And guys, you've read the title of the video. I'm very happy to be welcoming to Doxcast for the very first time, Losi Osuji.
Thanks. So good to be here, Jake. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope I got it right. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you said it perfectly right. Most people struggle with it.
Yeah.
It's actually, the full name is Losi.
Yep.
But I've got sick of trying to like enunciate the three names in one over and over again. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Oh, cool. Well, I have to say, as I said in the intro, I'm very appreciative you came over today.
Yeah.
I have to give a shout out to Strays as well, hooking this episode up.
Shout out to Strays.
Yeah, massive shout out. I obviously know a little bit about you, not too much, but just to share with everyone listening, how old are you? What do you do for work? Whereabouts are you from? Just a quick intro to get us started.
Yeah. All right. So age 31, a little bit of background. I'm in business, entrepreneur. Been an entrepreneur since my teenage years. Proud father of 3 sons.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm just. What else would you?
Oh,
I think that
was a good intro. That was good, bro. That's good. You give me a lot to go off already. So, you said entrepreneur, which is one of my favorite words. Obviously, it's a great word to mean that someone's chasing more. That's how I see the word anyway.
Yeah. Never satisfied. Never
satisfied. That's enough. I'm gonna write that down actually when I edit this. Never satisfied. With business, you said you're doing business at the moment. What is it that you're currently operating inside of? Okay. Like, what is business?
So, like, my primary business at the moment is Elite Branding, where we do corporate workwear. So we pretty much supply a wholesale uniform with decorations on top. So if a company like Qantas wants corporate attire, we'll supply them with their whole staff, their airline hostess, their pilots with the uniforms, and then put the Qantas logo on top of it all.
Yeah,
so that's my primary brick and mortar business. And then other than that, I'm also involved in, I have other ventures locally, and I'm also involved with physical commodities overseas as well.
Yeah, damn. Okay, wow. Well, with something like as major as something like corporate attire, like how do you get into a field like that in the first place? Were you doing any work previously that made that an easy transition, or was this a whole new business adventure to go down?
So originally I started with business with my brother. So I started in labor hire, and we scaled that to nationwide. And being young and a little bit reckless with my resources, we had to liquidate that company. And then I was looking for something that I could sort of line up the clients I already had. And I found that corporate attire was a good transition, because now I was providing products, and then I could get paid straight away on all these invoices. So I thought it would be an easy transition. I could utilize the clientele that I already had within the recruitment.
Did you always imagine growing up running your own business? Like, because you started pretty young, as you said, teenage years.
Yeah.
Did you always want to do that?
I think it was one of those things that we were forced to do. Coming from like immigrant families, like I'm half Nigerian, half Tongan. So like my mom was and dad was just your typical, imports that would run. At the time they were running a cafe in Westmead. They also had another shop in Regent's Park. Mixed food and grocery store, typical, right? So where they could sell their taro. My mom could sell her taro and all her Tongan goods, and my dad could sell all his African goods to, those to their people. And then I guess me, my sister, and my brother had no choice. We had to work there. So we were encountered at very early on that the only really way to make money was through business. That's, I guess, through our upbringing. And then, I guess over time, it became a challenge, because there was a situation where my dad sort of wasn't around. He wasn't really around, sort of a womanizer. So we were left, I guess there was that competitiveness in me where I was just like, oh, well, if he can't be a man, then I'll be the next guy to come up in my family to like really show him how to run a business, like an educated way, to run business, being born and raised in Australia, you know.
Yeah, wow.
So, like, I don't know. So it was a mixture of, I guess, family upbringing, thinking that that's normal, but then wanting to take it to the next level out of competitiveness and just being sick of our situation, like knowing that, like we would go to school and we would see all our peers, all they had to do was focus on school, whereas me and my brother and my sister, it was like not only did we have to focus in school and they expect us to be straight A students, they also expected us to work 2-3 hours after school at the cafe for free.
Wow.
Or one of the other shops. So it's just like it was almost frustration. Like, why does our lives have to revolve around our parents just because they run businesses, and they still expect us to like be the next doctor, you know, of the family. Like, it was very unrealistic expectations, but I don't know, that's what sort of propelled us to, like, well, for me anyway, to get into business.
Nah, that's awesome, dude. And I'm curious as well too. Because I have no experience in that inside my own life, and I don't really know anyone around me who had grown up with parents owning a business who were then forced in a way to then work at that business. You know what I mean? But I can also see how that's a super beneficial tool to instill into a young person's mind, not just about focusing academically, but also a good understanding on how the bills get paid. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I didn't have any understanding until I was 14. I got my first job. And I realized, if I want stuff, I've got to go earn the money myself to go buy it, because my parents never had money to give us when we were growing up.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction into the mindset of what it's like to go and achieve something in order to get what you want.
Yeah.
But growing up as a young kid, I bet it was a good lesson to learn. Like, this is how we make money. This is what we do. Seeing your parents work, seeing them operate with staff, and seeing customers spend money in these shops.
Yeah.
I bet that was awesome.
Yeah. But then at the same time, I guess the frustration for us, well, for me anyway, I shouldn't say for us, because I can't speak on anyone else's behalf, but the frustration was, it's interesting because frustrations is what drives me in life. Like the frustration of knowing that my kids can just focus on just studies when they're at a certain age, because that's all they need to be focused on. The frustration of knowing that whatever I do in life, I have to create a platform that others are able to, I guess, succeed from. Like, because in my life, even though my parents did do everything in their power, it's almost as if I feel like they only could do so much with the education that they received in life.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah. But yeah, you're right. It definitely was encouraging. I wouldn't say, what's interesting too is, even though I say it's forced, I must also say that, like, it didn't feel forced, because we loved working. We had met so many friends while working there. Most of the time, like, I was training at the gym or like going to the swimming pool. So we would have breaks, right?
Yeah.
So even though we were working for free, it didn't really feel like we were working.
Yeah, because it's almost lifestyle at the end of the day.
It's a lifestyle. It's like you get used to the lifestyle. But yeah.
Well, if I was going to chuck something in on that note as well, I work as a refrigeration mechanic by trade. That's my main source of income. And growing up, I used to go around to a lot of different stores spread out across all of Sydney, and I see how pretty much 80% of all cafes, restaurants, all these places work, because I've been in there to fix anything that's broken down. Yeah. And I noticed that in every single place I ever went, whenever it was a business owner that had children, especially like boys as children, they got the boys in the shops working, especially the grocery store ones and these places. And those boys were like, from the age of like 5-6 years old sometimes, operating the forklift, or they could be like, 10 years old behind the till, and they were so much more advanced in life than I knew anyone in their school could have possibly been, because they were exposed to the real world outside of school way earlier. Yeah. And me, when I was anywhere near that age, I was just concerned about Pokemon and Lego, and that's all my brain could possibly understand. So I think it is definitely a beneficial tool to get at least exposure to a bit of a workforce as an early age. Not saying I'm jealous and I would have rathered it, like, I've got to be honest with you, but it's awesome to know that it pretty much could have helped start a young entrepreneurial mindset at an early age. Now, going into labour hire with your brother at what age did you say, 18, 17?
I would have been about 17. I was about 17, he's about 16 years of age.
And how did that business kind of start? What was the main objective of having this labour hire business? How did you even find the work or the labour or anything like that?
Yeah. So this is a pretty funny story. So my brother, he was kicked out of a few schools, and then my mom sent him to Tonga. And when he came back, because she's like, this guy's getting kicked out of everywhere, like schools you're not even supposed to be kicked out. Like, how can you get kicked out of like schools like Granville Boys or whatnot?
Yeah.
He must be like, there must be something wrong. So she sends him to Tonga, and then he comes back. And I remember at that time, I was like, I'm a very, I love history. Hey, like I things to do with modern history and English. It's like anything that sort of is in line with like breaking stereotypes or like ways in which can bring about unity among humans. I'm all for that.
Okay.
So when he came back, we're going back to with business, how we got into it. He came back. He's just like, what are things we can do together, you know, with utilizing both our skill sets, and because I'm always all about how can we bring people together. He's like, all right, do you want to manage a team of people? What I'll do is all the guys that, because he hung around like a lot of like guys that were coming out of juvie and things like that, juvenile, for those who don't know the abbreviations. So all the guys that would come out of juvenile, he would provide them a job, and then we'll get a kickback from the government. And then, and all I had to do was like sort of manage and send them to sites. Majority of the sites we were sending them first was actually my dad's sites, my dad's construction sites that he was sending his laborers to. And then, that's pretty much how we got started.
That is such a crazy idea that I want to know, how did that idea even come into fruition? How would you know that you're able to get a kickback off the government in order to get these young kids like?
Because all the
places, great information.
Yeah, so like everyone that was hanging out back in the day we used to have this the youth centers. Everyone used to. I'm not sure if they still do it now.
Yeah, I used to go to youth centers when I was younger. They still exist. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And like at the youth centers, all the boys would talk, and they'd be like, "All right, we're trying to get a job."
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess my brother, he's a very inquisitive person. Like he always likes to work out like where the money's coming from. So he's just like, "All right, if you guys get a job, what's the benefit of these guys at the youth centers who are getting you on these jobs?" So he worked out that there's some monetization involved in that. That's the only way any organization can run. So, that's how he sort of worked that out.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was just like, all right, that's easy. All I really need to do is like convince my dad. And then in my spare time, my other duty is just to go to random sites, and I'll have like, I printed out like 500 business cards. It was like a really dodgy one. It was like all yellow with like these, just the black writing. I don't know why I went with yellow. I'd at least go with like a white card or something.
High vis, I get it.
So weird. And then I would go to every site, every site I would see, like walk from place to place in my high vis and whatnot, and say like, if you guys are looking for labourer, we'll give you the best price. Because when you first get into the entrepreneurship journey, it's just like, I'm going to offer the best price and I'll get all the jobs.
Of course. Quantity.
You're thinking quantity, right? Yeah. And they're like, the money will come if I just undercut everyone.
Yeah.
And then, that's how that whole journey started.
Yeah, nice. Okay, that's awesome. That's a good recap. I like that. It's a great idea as well for a business as well. I did a podcast, just the last one I filmed, with a guy named Andrew Trung, and he works with a company called Confit.
Yeah.
And Confit is a gym at Parramatta that now has a charity organisation part of it, and they go around to all the juvenile centres in New South Wales, trying to expand into Australia, and they sit down with the young kids and they try and give them additional information as to how they can benefit their lives instead of going through the path of crime.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting. I'm just
Love
sidetracking about how whenever I have one conversation about a certain topic, it does come up in the next podcast as well.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's crazy how it happens all the time like that. But with this new business, how long was it between? So how long did you do that for, and what did you do in between doing the labour hire business and doing what you're doing now with Elite Branding?
So labour hire, we were running that for about 4 to 5 years, and then we exited labour hire, and then after that, me and my brother sort of like, he went to Dubai because he got very heavily involved in cryptocurrency, so he moved to Dubai, and then that's when I was trying to look for something to do. I actually dabbled in cryptocurrency for a bit.
Yeah.
And then while trying to suss out what's the next thing, I looked into everything like ATMs, like what is it, drop shipping and everything else. And I'm just like, and I found one day I went, my wife, like she would, at that time, I really believed in I still believe in the same ideology of men should work and women, all they really need to do, which is the hardest job in the world, is look after the children, and they don't need to work or do it.
Yeah,
like outside the household.
Yeah, nurturing. I'm a strong believer of that. Yeah.
And so I noticed she was like packing some clothes, putting clothes and things together, and then for her, I think it was her sister's birthday party, her niece's birthday party, sister's daughters. So yeah, when I seen her packing all this stuff up, I'm like, like doing all these decorations, I'm like, you have so much patience for this stuff. And then she's just like, because I enjoy it. Like, I'm a very creative person. So then it just dawned on me. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's something I could do with my wife where she could actually understand who I am as a person as well. Because I found that we need to create a line, we need to create sort of something, a baby together where she can understand a little bit more about what I do from day to day. Because before then, it was very much just like, don't ask me questions. Don't talk to me about it. You don't understand.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait, now this is my actual chance to sort of introduce her into it. Maybe it was a little bit selfish at the time.
I think all good things come from selfish actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she, that's when I thought, that day I decided, I'm like, you know what? If I open a company for you, what I'll do is like, we'll run it we won't go to B2C side, we'll go B2B. And I can run my clientele through it. But we'll provide all the workwear and attire to companies directly. No more dealing with people like individuals. And she's just like, yeah, I'm all for it. So then I just bought this massive commercial printer and like some embroidery machines and whatnot. And I'm like, this should be like a little bit of capital to be able to sort of start this thing, get this thing going. Because majority of the stuff you can just sort of like outsource, right? And get other people. You find like you because I already, with the experience beforehand, you know that it's better to leverage rather than trying to do everything yourself. Because you may think that you may make, let's say, you may make a $2,000 in 1 week, but that $2,000 is required all your time. Whereas if you use 1,500, only make $500, that $500 you can multiply that by like 40, 50 people. Wow. You're making significantly more money. Yeah. So that was the approach, that all these alarm bells started going through my head, and I'm just like, all right, we're going to start this. And I just, that moment in time, I just opened the company, had a website up within 3 days, and then just like, ever since then, I've just been going hard at just trying to build that baby. But it's more or less, the elite branding is just like, it's a brick and mortar business. So I know it's only so scalable, right? It's not where I'm heading towards making a legacy. It's more or less just something that I can just be like, it's another brick and mortar business that I've turned from like not much to something.
Yeah, okay. Wow, okay. You've given me a lot of points to go down off that too. I want to circle back. I'm still at the original point too about being a father of 3 boys as well. I'm going to come to that later on too. I'm very interested in that. Also, the story with is it wife or girl partner? How is it wife? Married?
Wife,
okay,
yes.
Your wife too. I'm very interested too in the dynamic, not just with your mindset, being a man and having to be the provider, so a woman can be nurturing to the children. I think that's phenomenal as well. But in my own personal life, I've recently come to the realization of money only being attained through time. Okay, so I've been concerned, and I learned this mindset through growing up as a tradesman myself. You show up to work every morning and you get paid for the fact that you showed up and you gave away 8 hours to earn 8 hours worth of wages. Yep. You constantly get rewarded. The longer you stay, the more money, pay rises come in. Once you can't earn any more, when you're at the top of the food chain, you kind of have to do weekend work and overtime. And then when that's not enough, what I've been doing for the last 2 years is I work nights. So I work night shift because it's double the penalty rates and things like that. So I recently got to a realization where it's like the only way I can possibly make more money now is if I give up more time, and time isn't something that I even have anymore. There's no more of it. So even going and starting my own business on the side, I'm realizing that exact thing. I could go earn $1,500 to $2,000 per job, or I could pay someone else to do it and make anything between $300 to $600 and not have to do the job at all.
Yeah.
You know, and even if I'm only getting one job a week, it's way more beneficial into my own life because I have now got the opportunity to make more money. And that's something that took me a very, very long time to realize. Like, it's only been in the last 8 weeks that I think I've had this realization in the first place.
And it's a hard shift. It's incredible you reach that place because most people can't see it through that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I guess it's because, let's face it, you get comfortable and you have everything sorted, and it makes it much more easier to project where you're heading in the future because now you're like, you actually have stable income to be able to say, all right, if I have, I'm making, let's say, hypothetically, 3,000 a week, and this 3,000 a week, 1,500 could go to the bills, and this other 1,500 could be saved for so and so else in the future, right? And like you can get comfortable with that, but the fact that to see through it requires us to actually come to a place where we realize that nothing is really in control. We're really not in control of anything but our time.
Yeah, 100%. And the realization that time is my most valuable currency that I'm operating with.
Yeah.
That I not only have to be able to spend on myself, but also be able to lend out and spend with other people as well, helped. But I think the biggest motivational key to change my mind was that understanding and that comfort of like, okay, I've got X amount coming in, which means I can build myself to X amount of future. And then the longer you do it, the better and better your future can look because you're getting closer there. And then that feeling that I felt was, I deserve more than that.
Yeah.
That's not enough for me. I need more. I don't just want to climb this mountain. I want to own this mountain.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not going to be able to because there's no more time left to buy it with,
Definitely.
you know? And I think that I'm now trying my best to push a lot of the people I know into that mindset because, and what's crazy is in my own personal life, I don't know if I'll go into it or not, but it's only been extreme hardship that has actually given me this realization. Like it's crazy because I know that we also talked about this before we did the podcast about hardship and suffering and along these lines, but reality hit that is what made me realize, shit, there is not enough time anymore. Like I've been wasting time. I could have gone down the wrong path with time. Like we need more time.
Yeah.
And it's like not willing to give up the money either. You know, I want it all.
Yeah. It's tricky. The balance was, as we mentioned at the earlier stages of the podcast, like the balance of having it. I think I just finished the book Psychology of Money, and like I've read it now the second time, and it's just, it goes into the whole idea of why money is so important, and it's just to be able to have more time. That's all people really want at the end of the day, is more time. So it's just like money is just a means so that we can buy more time. And now when I see the world that way, it's just like, okay, which one's easier for my return on effort in everything I do? I think those are the keys, right? It's just like, okay, how you mentioned, if I get if I make only $300 from a job, or $600 regardless, even if it's $300, but if I can multiply and find that same guy, another 10 or 15 of these guys, I'll have more. If I can spend all week looking for 10 or 15 of these guys, or 3 months, I'll still make more money after these 3 months because now I got 10 people who make what I will be making doing the job myself, right?
Yeah.
So now all that extra time I'm spending, and it's crazy because like most people would look at it more or less like, okay, what am I getting now? But you really have to think like, okay, 3-4 years down the track, it's like what I'm doing today, 3-4 years down the track is going to pay off much more dividends than me trying to look like the man today.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to look like the man today, I feel.
Yeah. I'm a constant reminder to myself that I'm not patient enough to be able to look forward to the future. And it was only, to be honest, it was in preparation for this episode that I was reflecting because, and I actually pressed record and recorded myself talking to the camera for the first time I've ever done without a podcast in preparation for this. And it's because one of my mates, Delvin, shout out to Delvin, he put me onto this and he bought me this book that came in the mail this week. And it was a very, very short book. It was only less than 100 pages. It was by this guy called James Allen, and he read it in 1903, and he was a philosopher. And the basic overview I got of this book was that a man is capable of creating any future he wants to create, which is something that I completely believe in with manifesting, prayer. There's a lot of things that back my proof up with that. But the realization I had was that it's not necessarily like I'm responsible for heading towards the future I want. It's more that I'm responsible for having the future I want come towards me. So I don't need to worry about rushing towards becoming that future I want. If I live the present day how I want the future to be, that's the future that will come. I know it's hard for me to wrap my head around because I only just come to this realization, but it made me in that moment only an hour ago, to be honest, realize like there's no need to stress about getting to that destination. Let's live in this exact moment the way I want my life to be in 10 years' time. And then that future has now come forward, you know, and all those little fruits of labor will show up along the way. But by showing up and doing a job that takes me 10 hours and I get paid for those 10 hours, in 6 months' time, I'm going to have to show up for 10 hours to get paid this, you know, and the same thing tenfold. In 10 years, I'm doing the same thing.
You enjoy the moment so much more, right?
Yeah.
Like every moment in time, like just here now, like just this moment in time, it's enhanced.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so appreciative of every little moment, just meeting you, coming across other people, like Shreya's introduced, like any friend that I meet on the path, it's just so much more grateful for it because you're in the moment in time.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like that guy, the difference between the guy who goes to the gym and is just like, I gotta go. He says in the back of his head, I gotta go to the gym so they can put on muscle. And the guy who's just like, you know what? I can't wait to get in there, bang out a few weights, and I come out like stronger than I was before I came. Before I went in.
Yeah.
So it's that mindset to life is like,
yeah,
just taking that whole mindset into life, it just makes life so much better.
Oh, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to talk about the fact that you have this positive mindset too, and you also mentioned that you're a believer in the fact that you want to be able to provide a position for your wife to be able to do the most important role, which is having kids.
Yeah.
All right. How long ago did you have children for the first time? How old's your oldest?
My oldest is 4.
Yeah.
And my youngest is 3 months.
Okay. So were you with your wife before? Were you married before? Like, how long have you been with your wife for?
Yes. I've been married 4 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was before baby. We made sure we were married. But yeah, before then was I think that before then was a completely different story.
Yeah.
Definitely, like meeting my wife changed my whole perspective on life in the sense where, as men, we're naturally hunters. You know, like especially men who are driven, men who are always focused on like self-improvement, growth. I find that for me anyway, personally, it's easy to forget the small things to be appreciative of, and I think my wife, just having her in my life, really opened my eyes to like just the little things to be appreciative of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel like, and I don't really know how I'm going to ask it, but I know what I'm trying to get at in my head, so bear with me.
Yeah.
But do you feel like meeting your wife helped push you further onto a path of correct thinking? Or is it my current mindset and what I feel like I'm going to have to experience when I do meet my future wife, and that it has only gained me more responsibility to take away from my natural drive of wanting more?
That's pretty deep. Could you repeat that one more time?
Okay.
Because I want to make sure I answer, because that was very...
Okay.
There was a lot of thought that went into that, so
yeah.
I want to make sure I get it.
I'm asking this question coming from someone who just got out of a relationship, who felt like he had a lot more responsibility.
Yeah.
Getting out of it gave me a lot more time on my hands at the end of the day. But again, I've lost that responsibility in a sense where I don't feel like I have to push forward. I kind of have the freedom to be able to go forward at my own pace. So did meeting your wife and starting this relationship help push you into a place of, I want to be able to achieve more for them, so I'm going to go get it? Or did it give you more responsibility so you felt like you couldn't go get the things you wanted to get in the first place?
I think for me personally, I am who I am, like with or without my wife.
Yeah,
like, it's
okay.
my way. Like, it's my way or the highway. I'm that sort of guy. Like,
Yeah.
So like, don't get me wrong. I listen, but for me, the power of a woman is suggestion. So with my wife, it's more or less she's just fine-tuned the way I think.
Yeah.
Or the way I do things in life.
Yeah.
So it's an example would be, let's say more or less if I've just finished a meeting or something and I say, you know what, I could have handled this meeting a bit better. This bloke, the way he approached you, I might have a perception that let's say maybe a little bit harsh, but my wife would be the one. Why I love her so much, she'll be the one to be like, she'll sort of give me a feminine perspective that doesn't degrade the other person. Maybe it was your approach. Maybe it's the communication style, because I know how sometimes you can be like with me.
Yeah.
So it's like the suggestion makes me think, okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe it is my communication style. I'm going to speak to the same person, but change my communication style. Maybe they'll be a bit more receptive to it.
Yeah.
So like my wife, that's where that's where we kind of glue. Because for me, I've been in relationships before my wife, where it's very much like, oh, if they're not doing what's in best interest of you, F them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm already like that.
Yeah,
So that I'm just going to be pushing. The thing I've realized is like I need someone who sort of can like pull the reins, but not in a way where it's like direct.
Yeah.
Pull the reins in a way where there's love and there's a caring nature behind it for other people, not just me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as humans, we're naturally selfish.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, like how sometimes you have women, what this thing I can't stand, and there's an argument, and a woman will turn to you and she'll say, "What are you gonna do about it, babe?"
Oh, dude,
that burns me. I'm just like, you know what? Like, I don't even know. Like,
feed him though. Feed him.
I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, don't get me wrong. I would want to disassociate myself with the woman.
Yeah.
Immediately. But there's so many women out there like that.
I've been in extensive
wild
research with these women. You know? Yeah. Okay, so your wife gives you the nice perspective you need to be able to see the things that you might not be noticing in the first place. Then.
Yeah, because I'm all about like money and moves. What's the next move? Who can I connect with? But she's very much, that's where she's, so in one way, to your question, like on one side, it's like she slowed me down, I would say, when it comes to like that hunter in me to be like, just take over, get what you need to get, and then move on. Do you know what I mean? Without no trace, nothing. You're set. You know.
Yeah.
She's taken that thing away from me, and and it's been replaced with more or less like, okay, what am I gonna do to conquer, but helping people?
Damn.
You know.
That was a great way to sum that up, because that is the greatest perspective you can be given, in my opinion. Like I think. And I think about this with money too. I think about, what is money? Money is time and energy people have put into anything, and this is what they've been given for it. You know, money is time at the end of the day, and the only way for me to make money is to take other people's time. You know, so it's a selfish act that needs to be taken place, because like I feel like I want it, I'm going to go get it anyway. But to also consider the other person in the scenario means that, how can they benefit just as much as I'm benefiting?
Exactly.
You know, what services could I offer?
Yep.
So to take away their time, I might have been able to either give them something in return, or to be able to enjoy their time better.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's also incentives behind it for the person who's participating in your business or whatever you're doing. Because one thing that comes to my mind as well is a lot of people want to become this guy, like let's say a multi-billionaire with like the Bugattis and all this other stuff. Like, oh, that's nice, all these shiny things, but it's like, how much stress would that person have to go through managing thousands of employees? Like, I don't want that stress.
Yeah.
God knows I can't. The way I see it is like, God knows I can't handle that stress now. That's why I don't have 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
But best believe I must continue my path of growth, because that will be the direction I'm heading in. But I need to be prepared mentally to be able to, because at the end of the day, if anything happens, these are 1,000 employees with a family, with a loving wife, kids that depend on their role.
Yeah.
So if they lose that role, like, that's all on my head.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stress to think about going into each day. Every decision you make, you know, that's at the back of your head, you know.
Yeah, that's responsibility, man.
It's so much more responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's the other flip side of the coin. It's almost like, I think it's like, because the other thing I was speaking to my wife about, you probably laugh about this, is like, we were talking about people in general, we'll have random topics, and there was like simple man versus some topic that came about, and someone messaged me and they're like, oh, my husband, he's such a simple man. And I started laughing. I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Obviously, she's insinuating that I'm not a simple man.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah,
You know, it's funny when people are like,
Yeah,
it's supposed to be one of my closest mates. Sorry, you probably see this. It's your thing. And anyways, it's like he sees his wife messages me like, oh, he's such a simple man. So me and my wife are going back and forth and I'm saying like, what is a simple man? I don't even get it. Do you even get what a simple man is?
I think I do. I have my own interpretation. I believe if someone calls someone a simple man, it means that he's not after more than he's comfortable with that he already has. So it doesn't mean that he's not willing to achieve more. A simple man is completely comfortable in his situation. He's a simple man. He enjoys the simple things, you know what I mean?
But here's the question. Are they really comfortable?
I don't know. I know that I'm not comfortable knowing that I can get more. You know what I mean? At all times. The present is never enough. I'm after greatness because I deserve it, so I'm going to go get it, you know?
Maybe because I'm not a simple man, but I just find it very interesting. It's like, are you really simple? Because I know innately as human beings, we're all selfish. So deep down inside, if you're that simple and you're that content with life, be a monk.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? Go serve the poor. Like, why are you working in a job trying to buy a house and then go on to a next house and like try and look at investment properties? Like, you're lying.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Like, you're lying to yourself. You're not a simple man.
Of course. Of course. I think that there's a natural, and this relates back to balance as well in my own philosophy on what I think it is, but it's a very natural feeling to want to be as happy as you can possibly be in the moment. To be present means to be zen, you know, which is like the monks that you were saying. And that is almost something that humans are trying to achieve at all times, but it's our natural human desires that make us want to go and achieve more. And that also leads to more suffering. It also leads to more anxiety, more depression, because you're not happy with the current moment. Every psychologist, every counselor, therapist, every motivational speaker, they're all trying to tell you to be happy with who you are in this exact
moment. Which is nuts, right? Because even if you look at if you look at a monk, anyone in a Zen state, a guru, a priest, like I was just saying, someone who actually practices it, not the ones that may
even a yogi or
a yogi. Yeah. They go through immense amount of suffering. They're always challenging themselves towards growth. They're never satisfied with who they are as a person. So that's the thing that gets me concerned in today's society. It's like, who are the simple men out there? Do you get what I'm saying? It's that's.
I think, and I'm not trying to throw shade at whoever said this term about your friend being a simple man, but I think a simple man might be a lazy man. Because a simple man...
That's exactly it.
Yeah. A simple man is not someone who's willing to go through the feeling of, I want more. You know what I mean? Like giving up.
And they can... Exactly. That's what I was getting into. The simple man in today's society is the guy who's given up and accepted that, which is nothing wrong with it, but just accept. Be a man. This is where I'm like very old school. It's like, be a man and accept you've lost. Like, you had a crack and you lost. It's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just say it. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But the fact that they can go out in today's society and like wave around this participation award as if they've been through it all. It's like, no, you can't wave that award around, because now you're putting down the guys who are actually going out trying to get more.
Yeah, you're right. Because by waving that flag around and saying, I've been through it all and now I'm a simple man and I've been through the suffering and respect me for being able to pull out of this rat race, means that in theory, they haven't been through it all. They've just experienced what it all looks like, and they've decided, I'm not willing to go down what it all is in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
There should not be a participation award, but coupled with that idea is that if everyone achieves greatness, no one is great in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, if everyone wanted more and everyone went out there and achieved more, who's standing above the crowd? There is no high achievers.
But this is where I believe that you can be a high achiever in whatever you do. Like a cleaner who's giving his best every single day, and he may be on the lower salary. To me, he's a hero to his family. Like he could be feeding a family in India, in Philippines, or he could be feeding his family here. But the man gets up every single day and makes sure he puts pride into what he does. For me, it's not about how much you earn. It's not about who you know. It's about just the effort that goes into a man to what you do. Like I feel like in today's society, it's no longer is the ideals of who a man is, no longer are those ideals like held to a high regard. It's now more or less like, okay, well, if you're this man who wants to become a superhero, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you want to be this man, like, have you even seen the Spider-Man and the Supermans that are coming out now?
Yeah.
Like, they're not even jacked anymore.
Yeah, I know.
That is terrible. Like,
I know.
what? And they're soft too.
Yeah.
But they're supposed to be superheroes. Nah, we believe in all these we're soft and we're woke and we're with you, but then I'm gonna fight for you and die for you. Like, come on, that male would run in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, it's like, and you know what's crazy? It's like, it takes away the game of what makes a man. Like, I was speaking to the bro about it the other day. It's like, when I would speak back in my single days, when I used to speak to like anything of the opposite sex, I still apply it with my wife, but I would always think, okay, what would Superman do? Superman was quiet. He didn't speak much. He stayed mysterious. He only told her what she needed to know, even when they were close, right? If you looked at all the superheroes back then, and everyone who didn't love Superman, everyone was obsessed with Superman. So all I had to be is Superman when I went out there, and Superman can be the cleaner. Superman can be anything. That's what people don't realize. But now it just sucks because now Superman's an overachiever and is not a simple man, which I think is quite the opposite. And the other one, who is not willing to do anything, is now the guy to be with.
Yeah. Oh man, you don't know how
they
hard
want a bunch of eunuchs, right?
Yeah, you don't know how hard you hit me just then. So before I get into what I was about to say to relate it to that, I'm curious as well. Being a father of 3, having a wife, being an entrepreneur, feeling like the world is your oyster and you're going to maneuver it in a way to help benefit not just your life but your families as well. How do you, and to be honest, I know by looking at your Instagram, you're definitely into the gym, you work out a lot, you're in good shape. How do you find that time to be able to balance the time with your family as well as going out into the world to be able to get more?
Definitely supportive wife.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely supportive wife. Someone who just backs your dreams. Like my wife, like no matter what I do, she backs me. She backs me 100%. A lot of the stuff, like, for instance, I just recently had a trip to Dubai and I was there for 40 days. And most people were messaging my wife saying like, are you okay? Is the kids okay? Like, some of them, they may have had a good intention. Some they had very dark motives behind it.
Before we go any further, how would you know they had dark motives based on the same messages coming across? Was it based on who was sending the messages or the way the messages were being sent?
The way the messages are framed.
Yeah.
For me, it's if you speak in between the lines, it's okay. But certain things like messages where they say, oh, I noticed your husband's overseas and I was just thinking about you and the kids.
Yeah.
And then my wife will say, she won't respond. And then after they'll message her, the same person will message her again and say, oh, your husband's still overseas. Are you okay with the kids? I was just thinking about you and praying about you. It's like, what really are your motives? And then someone just outright, just in their face, like call her and say, you know, like you gotta love him. They'll call her and say like, I don't know how you'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I would never allow my husband to do that. Yeah, but your husband's like, your husband's
simple
not
man.
Yeah, your husband's a simple man. Like how can you even compare the two?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like for me, and it's hard in today's society because if it was like back in the old day, I would like to say, you can be like, if you really feel your man's like that, why don't you bring your man and I'll slap him?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you really think your man's the toughest bloke, tell him come. Like you know, we can duke it out. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
But like nowadays, it's like if you say that, it's like you're a violent person.
Yeah.
Then if you take another angle and you're like, okay, what are your goals? What's your man's goals? What's my goals? It's completely different places. We're heading in 2 different places. I hang around a completely different crowd. I'm on a completely different mission.
Yeah.
You know, like what's his? Now you're arrogant and cocky.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do
judgmental.
You're judgmental.
Yeah,
So it's like you can't. And then when you're quiet, it's like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. So in today's day and age, that's why I've reached the point where I'm just like, with that negative energy, I'm just like, okay, well, if that suits you, then I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
And just leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. The first point I want to come back to about that line was that you don't surround yourself with people like that. So I'm going to try and make a mental pin to come back to that.
Yeah.
But first of all, as we were discussing, the fact that you have the support from your wife that makes it so much easier, right? That is a super necessary, beneficial ingredient to your life, I believe. And the people who are with the more simple man who say the things like, I wouldn't allow my husband to go do that. Like, I feel like that type of individual is completely washed and spread across society, as we know, as a whole.
Definitely.
Almost. There's only a fair few that are shining above the rest as men.
Yeah.
So to be able to find a woman who wants to be able to support a man like that must be even rarer than the man in the first place. So
I completely agree with that. That's powerful.
I think you're very fortunate to have found your wife. And in my personal experience, I've only noticed that again recently in times because I got out of a relationship and the way the relationship ended was a bit of a shock at the end of it wasn't backed by arguments or it wasn't backed by a realization like it's heading down the wrong path. It just came as a quick, abrupt end of a relationship. And I thought for the first couple weeks after, like, what is going on? Like, I don't even understand. Like, I believe I'm going to be great. All the actions I do in my life show me that if I continue down my path, more rewards are going to come. Definitely. And I've got nothing but more and more hunger every time I wake up every morning. Like, if this person found me in the first place and was like, yo, this is the guy that I want to build a future with, like, I can see the future he's with, I'm thinking, how could she have possibly lost that faith in me? Like, I haven't lost it. Am I missing some pieces along this puzzle there? So I spent a week or 2 weeks thinking to myself, like, maybe I'm not doing this enough to prove that I'm going to be able to become this person. Let's do more of that. Maybe I'm not doing this enough. And I'm kind of looking at my own life from a bird's eye view, like, what missing ingredients do you need in order to improve, to get there faster? And by the end of it, I realized, like, this person did not lose faith in the person I'm going to become. I believe that they believe that I'm going to achieve everything I want to achieve. They just want someone to be there now.
Yes.
They want a simple man.
Yeah.
They want someone to just hang out and get home at 4:00 in the afternoon and spend all day, every day at home and not be trying to work out at the gym and not be trying to grow businesses on the side and not be interacting with society.
You know what's funny? That's the same. You fast forward 10 years down the track, that same woman will say, oh, I was with that guy.
Yeah.
You would be way over her. I imagine like you would have your beautiful wife and everything all sorted, and she would still be talking about you.
Yeah.
You know, the typical woman who's just like, yeah, I dated that guy and back in freaking 1994 or something.
Yeah.
It's wild. Like, they're talking about things that happened a long time ago. So at the end of the day, they lose.
Of course. Yeah. There's no question in my head that it's like, I feel like I did anything wrong, to be honest. I don't. I just have a better understanding now of an overall situation. Like, not everyone's actually down for the journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are after the destination of what it is today. Yeah. You know, and that's been super beneficial too.
Can I mention something as well? What comes to my mind as well is like, during the journey as well, what's hard is today's day and age, we have social media, and social media has made everyone think that achieving what the 1% have is so much more attainable than any other time in history, which is true. We are in one sense, the biggest amount of distribution of wealth is happening in our generation. That's for sure. Like, there's no other time where you could make as much money as today's day and age. But people forget that Andrew Tate and all these other guys, Patrick Bet-David, even though we look at them on their screen and they seem accessible, they are the 1%. Yeah. Like, to get to that level, that's
a long time.
That's a very long time. And if you look at the statistics in general, even very hardworking people who save their money and invested on multiple platforms, whether that be stock exchange, etc., have their own funders to manage their money. Even they don't reach to a Tate level. They don't even reach to that level.
They reach at 2%
when they're like 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
Most millionaires are made at like the mid 50s to 60s. So like it's hard because young women in today's day and age, you witness this. It's just they feel, and it's men too, this is for the men as well, they feel as if all those things are so easily attainable.
Definitely so. And I think that, as you mentioned, social media, it's a fact that we are all to blame a part of, because we follow the people who live the lives we want to live. That is the point of follow, you know. And I've noticed that in my own life, where I see anyone, whether it be the Patrick Bet-Davids, the Andrew Tates, the Joe Rogans, the Jordan Petersons, the people who are high. They're not just high achievers; they've achieved highness already. You know, it's not very often that I follow someone who hasn't made it yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not a follower for the journey. I'm a follower for the entertainment.
That's a good point.
And I think that it is definitely social media that has not just corrupted the minds of women in today's society, but it's also the men too, that we are all losing track of what the journey is all about. That's a good to be a follower means that you follow someone through something. It's not a watcher where you watch someone at the top of their throne. You follow someone through army. You follow someone through fields and travel across nations. And like the Vikings used to have the followers who would follow their king across the seas. Like,
I love that.
It wasn't about, and it's like, it's so washed, but it's like, it really isn't about the destination, but we're all to blame for the fact that we're watching people who are already on their throne, you know?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's just something that I've noticed recently in my own life, but I want to circle back, and we will come back to this point as well. You mentioned that the people that you surround yourself with are not the simple men. It's the people who you do surround yourself with. And I'm curious, in the business that you're in, if you're trying to go straight to the businesses and not the everyday individual customers anymore, like what type of networking are you making inside of this business that you're operating? Are you surrounding yourself with more hungry individuals?
Yeah, I would say like people like yourself. When I said like I don't put what is it? Don't get me wrong. Like the money you have and whatnot, the money you have is a reflection of the reward on your efforts. But I respect the grind of people. Like I just respect the grind. If someone's continually, how you mentioned earlier, they have that self-awareness. They're always assessing self. They're always looking at ways in which they can improve themselves out of any situation, whether it be good or bad. Especially bad situations, men have to be able to dig deep and be like, okay, where's the mistake? Why did I get caught by that? I like to say like that right hand. It's because I need to switch up my methods. I need to acquire more knowledge. So yeah, I surround myself with people that are very much on that journey, and they're all on like different stages, I would say, but a diverse range of industries. That's why I got into elite branding, is because they're all in diverse. Like I can supply to, like one day I can supply to the automotive industry. Next day the same day I can supply to hospitality, and it's great because then from those connections I can line up other things as well. I feel like I have more of an opportunity to see the wider chessboard.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And that's what the power of networking really is, isn't it? It's not just to find people inside of your own field that you can relate to. It's using your own field to find people in their fields to be able to benefit from not just your field, but from their fields as well.
Definitely, because everyone complements each other.
Yeah.
So you realize, like, people who are doing cryptocurrency will tell you something about the marketplace, the mass market within, let's say, in construction, and then development. They have certain cues. Like I was speaking to one friend who owns a few KFCs, and he was just talking to me about one of his other close friends that we were sitting with that owns Char Time, and he was just saying how giving me certain pointers about with hospitality, the margins that they're on, as well as like how they're not capitalizing on pretty much having everything automated.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh wow, there's a huge gap in hospitality for automation.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'm like, oh wait, that just opened my eyes for everything else that's not automated.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, then my mind starts going to like 10, 15 years down the track. It's like, what else aren't we automating? Everything's going to be automated 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like every industry leaves clues for like future, like whatever trends is gonna, whatever trends we're heading towards.
Yeah. I just had an example of that in my life this week too. So in our trade, once we've installed something new, we get paid to remove the old stuff, install something new. A simple example is our trade is very similar to air conditioning as well. If you're going to put an aircon in someone's house that isn't working, you rip the old one out first, you put the new one in. What people don't know is that you actually get money for the old unit, you go scrap it yourself. So the bigger the job, the more money you get for scrapping it as well. So if the scrap prices are lower at the moment, it's usually because the interest rates are higher, which means that there's less money coming in from overseas and being able to go out, so the scrap goes down. But then when the scrap goes down, there is like it all relates to a simple thing like the Olympics could change the price of copper, which could change the price of interest rates. Interest rates are higher, then there's less cafes opening, which means there's less work. Like every job, every position is actually impacting the next one at such a rate. And it's only a bird's eye view where you go, bro, this is lots.
And how amazing is it? Because through business, we can see that the importance of human connection.
Yeah.
We all need each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why you realize that's why with people who are one directional in their thinking, supremacists, let's say, and whatnot, they're never really money makers.
Yeah.
Because money makers are like, okay, they understand that every single human being is part of the cogwheel, and like without that good cleaner, we won't be able to walk. I remember like going places like, let's say, Singapore or Dubai, like the streets are perfectly clean. Why? Because like there's people who have pride in what they do.
Yeah.
And then we go to like, which is sad, we go to a Westfields in Australia and like there's gum all on the floor. Like even the airport, like people pouring coffee on the floor. Like really, you love our country and you couldn't even walk to the bin. There's a bin on every corner, yet there's coffee spills every second step. And then these other countries, it's like it's so hard to find a bin, but you won't see spills on the floor. You will never see gum on the floor. Like so, it's interesting. It's like,
what I think is a reason for that too is, and it's very controversial for me to say it, is it's the difference between democracy and socialism / communism at the end of the day, where it's the freedom that everyone has to be whoever they want to be compared to a nation of people living as one. You know what I mean? Like it's the fact that we live in a society that we can outshine each other that makes, unfortunately, the position in which we don't feel like it's our responsibility to do things that are underneath us. But in places of the world where people all earn the same income, or people all share the same mindset, like we all believe in our, whether it be China, say for example, it's an easy one for me to say, like we believe in the Communist Party, then everyone kind of operates under this one cognitive wheel that's self-beneficial, as opposed to a more capitalism part of the world where it's just dog eat dog, everyone climb their way to the top. The only way to get to the top is to be able to push people down underneath you.
But you know what I find crazy about all of that is like capitalism in general was like fundamentally built on judicial Christian values, and it was capitalism on its own was the reason why it was so viral and it was accepted by so many people is because it's the free markets, right? Now you were free, everyone was free to trade with everyone. So it's like the values that fundamentally made capitalism, those values actually, what I find interesting is those values made people, I'm trying to find the words.
Neglect.
So those original values were right. But I feel like over time what's happened is they've neglected these capitalist ideology in today's society. And I think they're somewhat socialist. I feel like people, even in capitalist society, want to be socialist.
Yeah.
Because if you look at their overall ideology of like, let's say, the ideology of being a simple man, the ideologies of like breaking the traditional values of what men and women should do, it's just like this all is contrary to like what capitalism was originally built on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the fundamental beliefs that like, all right, we as a nation will have free markets so that everyone can be motivated, encouraged to make more money. And think about this, what is a better motivator than to say, all right, if you work harder and you're smarter in your approach, you'll make more money.
Yeah, there's no
better way to motivate someone out of love.
Yeah.
And then it's like, so the problem I think in our society today is that people have taken it as if it's their inherent right, that they are somewhat better than other people. It's a superiority complex that I think majority of people have. And this is not like people think like it's just white people. It's every nationality. Like I've seen way more black people that are more entitled than white people, which is pretty funny, right?
Yeah.
And it's because the mindset is I've been born and raised in Australia, or I have access to all these things, so therefore I'm somewhat in a better position than everyone else. So I don't need to suffer as like everyone else, because I can just go to a job, or if I don't have my job, I can get something off Centrelink.
Yeah,
I'm set.
Yeah,
You know that
definitely.
mentality? It's
Privilege.
It's a
very
privilege, which
privileged.
is scary, because we'll shift to the socialist. Why? Because most people, I would argue the fact that most people in the Western world, not only Australia, aren't hard workers, and they're not willing to go out of their way to find innovative ways of like adding value to society. So think about it. If they're the majority, they will turn around one day and they'll be like, all right, so that guy, he's not simple like us. That guy, he's greedy. He's not like us. And they're the majority. They'll turn around and be like, we need to be socialist because we're all equal and we're all the same. What makes him different to me?
Yeah.
Because that's their mindset already. That's why when we go earlier in the podcast and it's like, well, mentioning when the friend mentions these things, this is what goes through my head. I'm like, 10, 15 years from now, these guys are going to have an army that, because now they're quiet. Like they do their subtle hints through messages, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like through their little, you'll probably notice this with your friends. Like you have little conversations and they'll like leave little hints like, oh, you work so hard, mate, you need to take a little break. Mate,
Yeah,
what are you doing
yeah.
all for? It's little subtle hints, but I'm telling you, bro, give it another 10, 15 years from now, those people are going to be knocking at your doorstep. Like they're going to be like telling the government, get the money from them, let's all spread it equally.
And you know what's crazy too is that a lot of people will. I'm very careful now with who I give my information to. So not even everyone in my circle, in my friend group, in my life, am I willing to tell them about the biggest dreams I've got, because I know that they're still suffering from a place of envy. It's not their fault. They have not
Tall poppy
trained-
syndrome.
Exactly, it's tall poppy syndrome. They have not trained themselves yet, whether it be through their experiences that they've been given from God yet, or whether it be the mindset that they haven't worked towards. They're not at that level yet. You know what I mean? There's this great quote that I love and I always refer to it, where not everyone is meant to go with you to your highest point. Think of them like boosters on a rocket. They're just not designed to go to the altitudes in which you're meant to go to, and sometimes you just have to let them fall off. And it's not because they're bad people. It's the quote said, because they're just not designed to go to your heights.
Yeah.
I think that the additional part of that quote should be, they have not yet been given their turn to go to the heights in which you're ready to go to. They might get their opportunity, but it's not their time yet. But you really do have to be careful with who you give your information out to at what point.
Oh, definitely.
To circle back, there's a couple things actually I want to circle back to, but the first one being the capitalistic fundamentals that were built on a Christian Judaic system.
Yeah.
I think that, and as you said, I think superiority was the word that stuck out to me the most, and that's a lot of people are suffering from this form. And I think why we have changed a lot in society away from those fundamental religious beliefs is because it is the selfish nature that is what leads people down the wrong path. And I know it was built on a religious foundation, but it's that I can do it all on my own that is what leads people away from unity. In the end of that's what makes people feel like they don't need anyone else around them. They can do it without other people. And I find that even though we have the freedom to be able to live whatever life we want, whether it be I can go work to earn more or I can not work and get paid from the government anyway, this freedom isn't necessarily the best way to live our life. I think that real freedom is only attained by having some kind of rules to follow. I think that we have freedom in society today because we have the police who are willing to enforce the rules against the people who don't want to follow the rules, you know?
Definitely.
Freedom doesn't mean being able to do what you want. I believe freedom means to be able to follow the rules as best as possible. Yeah. And I think that we've lost freedom because we've fallen away from God, because people aren't following the tendencies, whether it be through Christianity or whether it be through Islam or whether it be through a Hinduism practice or Buddha or any of them, because people aren't sticking to the 10, let's just call them the 10 commandments, you know, for example, that we are losing our connectivity with people in the first place. It makes us want to cut the head off the tall poppy. It makes us want to drag people down, and it also makes us want to leave that coffee at the airport in which we think it's not our job to pick it up, because when you follow the rules in any form of life and you stick to discipline, that's when you see the most progression. You know what I mean?
Because there's laws.
Yeah.
There's laws to everything. There's laws of health. There's laws to, like, and when we neglect the laws and we don't want any accountability, we're just left to our own demise. Humans would just, that's the exact problem I see in today's society. It's just humans, especially in the Western world, have had it too easy. You know, like I had a trip to Nigeria just before my other child. I had my first child, and when I was in Nigeria, I noticed that there was a lot of kids there that would have like one pair of clothes, maybe or two pairs of clothes. But I'm telling you, they looked fresh with their one piece of clothes. And I thought about it. I'm like, I've seen people, you know, no offense, like in certain areas, like, you know, certain Mount Jordan and things like that.
Yeah.
And like I've seen people, in Australia, let's face it, like most people have like at least 2 or 3 outfits, and they're walking around looking dead. Like they didn't even wash their clothes. Like, come on, like really? Like this little kid in Africa that barely has it, like fetching water. The same. I'm seeing him wearing the same outfit, but it's clean. He doesn't stink. His hygiene's still good. It's just like he doesn't have any shoes. It's just like, and then at the same time, this kid's also more happier. Yeah. You know, and then I sometimes look at my kids and I think like, sometimes I look at them and I'm just like, they don't want to eat their food. And that drives me nuts. It's like, wait a second. If I went to that random kid in Africa and told him to sit down for food, he would probably remember me for the rest of his life. Yeah. It's just that those small things of entitlement is what we have being brought up here. So it's like, I think it's a superpower when we can tap into. That's what I love about going to third world countries. Like every time I go to third world countries, I'll go to the village, and I'll literally just watch the villagers, how they move, what brings them happiness. I'll play soccer with them, do all these things so that I can draw from their hunger. It's like, now this kid would have died to be where I'm at in life. Like, what am I gonna do to make up for kids like this who need my help? You know,
that is powerful.
Because at the end of the day, I believe God is like one thing was amazing about at the end of that David Goggins book.
The first one, Can't Hurt Me?
Yeah, Can't Hurt Me. Where he says at the end of the book, he says, I believe that there'll be one day where I'll be meeting the judge. I really believe this. And God will look at, whether you believe it's God, whether you believe it's Buddha, it's like, he'll look at me and he'll say to me, from all you've done in life, did you follow? And he'll have like a list. He's like, these are the things you could have been, David Goggins. You know? And that hit me hard. It's like, oh, these are the things you could have been, Losi. What I wanted you to be, what you were destined to be. And this is the other kid who should have been in your spot. And this is where I drive the hunger from like third world countries. This is the other kid who should have been in your spot. But I trusted you. What did you do with it? Yeah. That scares me. Hey, that's what gets me up every single night.
That is my underlying pursuit in life. It's a fear of getting to a certain age and looking back and knowing I could have done more and didn't. You know, despite my situation, wherever I end up being, whether I end up deciding that I want to have the simple life or not, getting to a position and looking back and thinking, fuck, I didn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't achieve where I wanted to achieve. And coupling that with the fact that I didn't enjoy the present while I was in the present, you know, like whenever I go overseas as well, I whether it be for a holiday, whether it be a resort, or whether I spend my time in a populated, dense part of it, I never really have had any experience of what it's like living a day-to-day life with someone in that country. Although when I went to Fiji, I met some local guys at this maintenance place. I was only at a resort for like a couple of weeks or something. I met a couple of the local maintenance guys, ended up talking with them, and they invited me back to their village to enjoy a kava ceremony with them at their house. And I thought, fuck it, this is my only opportunity. I'm never going to get this opportunity again. Yeah. So I rounded up my mate and my dad and my mate's dad, and we went down to their village. And they had less than I've ever met out of anyone in my life. Like, and I've been like to other countries as well, but I've never been in someone's home before. And like, they didn't have floor, man. Like, it was it was the type of place you drive past and you're like, I can't believe that house is still there. You know what I mean? Like, how come no one's knocked it down yet and built a new one? Like, but they were the happiest people I've ever been with in my life. And like, we were asking them like, yo, what can we give to you guys? What can we send back from home to help make your lives better? Because we're looking at it from an outside perspective thinking like, you haven't got it. You haven't got nothing. And they were like, I don't know. Like, they didn't want anything. There was nothing that they were like, oh, we wish we had kids today, a PlayStation 5. Let's ask Santa for a new BMX bike. I want a horse, bro. Like, these people were like, oh, we don't need anything. You know, we've got everything we want. And that tapping into, as you mentioned, that self-awareness of the position we have to be able to achieve more is something we should not take advantage of. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's interesting to know that you don't need everything in order to be happy. But because we are fortunate enough to be born in places which we can get more, it's almost a disservice to ourselves and God if we don't do it in the first place. Definitely. You know?
I feel like even as I'm here with you in Doxcast, it's like you have a special platform and you are the voice of many boys out there, ones that you wouldn't even think you're connected to. Like, there's guys out of, like, some random Indian, some random African is looking at it, it's like, oh wow, like I get to see a perspective from someone who's from Australia, a country I've always wanted to go my whole life. They're living their life through you. Wow. Like, when you see life like that, you realize like we are so blessed and we have a huge responsibility. Like, this one thing people don't understand about greatness is like it does come with a lot of responsibility. Yeah, 100%. And I was going to mention that in the very, very beginning when we were talking about it, that it's the old famous quote, with great power comes great responsibility, but it's more like with great responsibility comes great power. You know what I mean? It's the more that you can take on in your life that gives you the best position to have power in the first place, you know? And just to touch note on that fact of the podcast itself and what it could be is I've been looking for a niche whenever people ask me for a question, like, what is a niche? Because to say you have a podcast in today's form of social media is washed. Like, it's like everyone's got one. There's a big quote that went around in the podcast community where it's like, not just Australia, globally, because I am a massive fan of dozens and dozens and dozens, where it's like, oh, every guy has a podcast, every guy has this. And it became people were trying to cut people out from the tall poppy syndrome. Oh, you're just another guy that has a podcast. But then the guys who had the big podcast platforms were looking down going, everyone wants to do it now. You know what I mean? I don't feel special anymore. And you kind of had to ignore it as well. But it became a big thing of like, well, if you want to have one, what's your niche? People might have one for, I follow some around the hills area for real estate, you know, or I follow some about mental health. Like, everyone's got a niche. But what I realized my niche was, and it took me 1.5 years to find it, was I'm just on a journey of self-development. Like, my niche at the end of the day is me. And I'm trying to sit down with as many interesting individuals like yourself, like Australians as well, like the people I do sit down with, and discuss our ideologies, our beliefs and our stories. And it changes my life episode by episode. And the people that watch, they're also self-developing as well. You know what I mean? That's what people come along for the journey. That's what people don't look at me and think, oh, that's what it's like to live the perspective of that guy. I think people listen to me and they think that they find the relation in the sense that, like, I think the same way. You know what I mean? So it's not just like a kid from the countries that I think you said India or places like that they might be able to look and be like, oh, that's what life's like through the eyes of Doxy. It's they're like, oh, I've got the same eyes as a guy in Australia in the first place. You know, I've got the same level of thinking. I've got the same understanding. I'm on the same journey. It's just interesting. It's not, I feel like people know it's nice to know that there's other people going through the same thing as them. If that makes sense? Yep. The way I see it as, I agree. But then also what comes to mind is, I guess that goes back to that superhero ideology that I'm always so fascinated by, which is just like drawing from that inspiration that there possibly can be someone out there. And not just because, even though to you it may seem like it's not much, but a lot of people that would be there's people out there that are watching that everything you're doing is actually their dream to do.
Wow.
Okay.
And that comes with responsibility then, doesn't it?
And let's say even with, in Australia, for instance, there's a lot of people who want to start a podcast, and just watching you, it's like, wow, I wish I I can't wait to get to that place.
Yeah.
How were you able to like get these certain individuals in the room? How does he do it? Like for them, that's magic. Even though to you, you're just like, man, I'm just hustling. I just keep moving. There's also, for me anyway, there's like also a part of us which we sometimes forget on our hunt is part of that whole experience of enjoying the moment, where we're just like so fixated on like, okay, how do I get to the next level? We forget that we're actually already so powerful as we are now.
Yeah, and I am finding the relation in a sense too, because even sitting down with you, hearing your story of starting elite branding, branding, I originally had the thought like, man, how is he able to have these conversations with these business owners? How is he able to do that? You know, like how fortunate of you to be, and it is that superhero mentality, you know, even if it's at a small situation-based system, like starting your own business and attacking corporate attire. Like, I think, how is it possible for someone to get into that position? And that, like you mentioned, like someone might be watching me thinking like, how is he able to do that? Definitely. I hear a story like you and think, okay, you know, why not me? Like, why him? You know, like, so it's not, it is rippling across every person who is high achieving, you know? And I think the thing that makes people stand out to make people want to achieve it is they're risk takers. You know what I mean? It's people who take advantage of situations. Yeah. You know, above the people who don't. Yeah. You know, for sure.
And we have like this undenying belief in ourselves.
Yeah.
Like me, like I don't care who you are. You can be worth $200 million and you can show me your bank account, show me everything. I'm just like, that's cool. So tell me, how are we gonna add value? Like, what tell me a little bit more about your projects. How does it work? Like, I have no insecurity whatsoever. Why? Because like I've just been in enough situations, just with the experience, been in enough situations to know that like, okay, I can hold myself. Do you get what I'm saying? Like but then at the same time, there's also the state of humility to know that this guy's worth $100 million because he has significantly more experience than me. So there's no disrespect in that sense, you know, because some people can get that mindset like, I'm like this person. Like, no, that's not true. This guy is obviously a beast. Why he's at that 100 million, and the next level, it's like, there's levels to the game. Like there's difference between Floyd Mayweather and another fighter that's knocking out everyone in Australia. Do you know what I mean? Like Floyd Mayweather is the best of the best. He's proven it has a track record of. Sorry for everyone who hates Floyd Mayweather.
You can't hate on 51-0 or 50-0.
That's what I'm saying. So like it's undeniable. Like it's the track record's there. So I see this through the same lens with business. But at the same time, I'm confident in my ability that even if I fail and get knocked out, I'm going to get back up. I'm that crazy guy that like, the guy could just knock me out over and over again, and I'll just knock on the door the next day and like, all right, we'll have another crack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I reckon I'll take you on this time. He's like, bro, I just knocked you flat stick yesterday. I'm like, bro, try it again. Do you know what I mean? And like, I'm going to come with my hands no dirty. Like, and it's, when I say that, you transition that into the business world. It's like, I'm not going to be dirty. I don't need to do cut tactics. I don't need to send boys to like, you know, squeeze you. None of that rubbish. Like, I'm just going to outsmart you. I'm going to outwork you. I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm going to be that guy that's always on your case. But the main thing in mind is like, what can I do to add value to you? And if I can't add value to you, cool, there must be someone else that I could work with.
Yeah,
and just being genuinely like yourself as a person. Like, a lot of people you realize in life aren't comfortable with who they are. They have to be something else. I don't understand why, because I can understand why, because like with social media and with people around, it's like, for me, you need to accept that every single human being has their strengths and weaknesses. There's certain things I can't do that other people can do, and there's certain things I can do that some people can't do. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be someone stronger than me. There's always going to be someone smarter than me. There's always going to be... But as long as I can be the best version of myself, I'll be more useful to those around me.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that to put yourself in a position where you're meeting someone worth $100 million, right? Yeah. It's the balance, again, that comes into play with every single situation in life, where you have to have the respect for the individual for achieving the levels they've achieved. Definitely. And not putting yourself above them or even on their same playing field to be able to reap the benefits in which you can, you know. Yeah. This book that I just finished reading, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, it talked about the fact that in life you have to have the people who follow and the people who get followed, but none of them should look at each other like a leader and a slave, because they are both benefiting each other at the same time. To put yourself into a position of like, I know I can achieve, I can benefit from this 100 millionaire.
Yes.
Is not a selfish act necessarily, because you're also putting yourself into a position in which you are now being his student. You know what I mean? Like both people benefit from each other just as much.
And you must become the student before you become a master. That's the sad thing about today's society. Like everyone wants to become the master overnight. You have to be the student and even when you become the master, the reason why you become a master is because in your mind you're a full-time student.
Yeah.
So it's like you've taken life as a student. You've been humbled that much to know that like this, because people forget that in this world there's if anyone believes, whether you believe it or not, like scientists can prove it, there's infinite intelligence. Some people call it God, some people call it Allah, so on and so on. But there's infinite intelligence. You understand when you're a student of life that knowledge is infinite. So even if a guy has acquired it like a significant amount and he's like the philosopher for health and knows everything about health, so much about health that he can heal people with his bare hands, that's great. But he's harnessed not even a speck of infinite intelligence in just health.
Yeah.
There's still areas of family. There's still areas of finance. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many other areas.
Self-development, there's motor skills, cognitive ability.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
so like people don't realize, like a lot of people don't realize like there's that infinite intelligence to acquire. So the student always knows in the back of his head, like, okay, whatever I know now is nothing.
Yeah.
He's always like that. Like, I don't know, I go out for my whole life. I'm confident that I can hold myself, but at the same time, I know that I know nothing.
I'm so glad you just said that. As you were saying it, I wanted to come to a point in which my brother is my apprentice at the moment. Yeah. All right, we've been working in the same industry and even companies for a long time now, but it's the first time we're working together. And I've been dreaming of this day, and so was he for a very long time, because I want that bonding opportunity with my brother, you know? And we train together outside of work when we can. We kick back at home when we can, but it's not like spending 10 hours a day together. Yeah. What I'm trying to instill in him is something that took me a long time to realize about myself too. And that's that I've always been a probably overly confident type of individual. You know, I guess a lot of ego drives me, but I also have always been a sponge for information to come. And now I've summed it up by trying to instill in him that he can only have confidence and he can only have self-belief and pride, and he can put himself into any room knowing that he's the most important person in that room if he understands that he can only be that person by knowing that everyone else has something to teach him, you know? He blisses through his TAFE. He's a very, very smart kid. I knew he would. I bliss through TAFE because I tried really hard. He blisses through TAFE because he's just so smart. Yeah. And I told him, he's like, yeah, you know, obviously I got 100%. Obviously I got 95%. And it's like, I want him to have that level of confidence with me. He's my brother. Yeah. But it's like, I don't want him to lose that thing that's like, you can believe you're going to get 100% because you're going to work to get 100%. You can believe you're going to be able to be the smartest kid in class, not because you have already got that natural born ability, but because you're going to try the hardest. You're going to study the most. Everything the teacher says, you're going to take in and write down. You can't already believe you're the man. To be the man, you have to believe that I'm on my way to be the man. Yeah. You know? And the only way to be the man is to be able to learn from everyone else. It's that infinite knowledge you have to tap into.
And you have to test it all the time. Yeah. Like, I always say this to my mates. It's like, you can't say you're strong unless you get into a ring for a professional fighter and then you throw your hands. Like, an average guy or Joe Schmo on the street, like, anyone could knock out with a jab, you know? That's just fighting. The same thing with business. It's like, if I'm going to get in business with someone, like, I must understand that this person who's worth so-and-so amount, whatever it is, it's like everyone's at different levels. But at the same time, don't underestimate that life can always turn around. The guy you least expect to be a beast usually has the most heart. Never, you know, that phrase, it's not the size of the dog, it's the bite in the dog. It counts. Yeah. So it's like also knowing that some guy can go from nothing and viral. Doxcast can go from 50 subscribers to 50,000 overnight, 50,000 to 250,000. Like,
and you know what's crazy is that it will. Everyone will get their chance. Yes. You know,
Yeah.
Everyone will. You have to work towards it. You have to have discipline, consistency, motivation, drive, hunger, the ability to take in more knowledge. But everyone's going to get their chance to be the 100 millionaire. You know?
And then what's exciting about life on top of that, it's now you have a special mission. This is how I see my life anyway. I have a special mission to each person I interact with. This is where ideologies are so important. It's like, can my ideologies make this person a better person or not? So every person I touch or speak to, they need to become a better version of themselves. Otherwise, I'm not doing what's right. So I surround myself, put myself in situations where it's just like, that's what excites me about getting into the rooms with people.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, it's not the fact that the numbers that people may, the amount of money people may be worth, more or less like, okay, this is something I can share. This is my opportunity to not only learn, but also like just share some of like my journey.
Yeah, and I think that is a major component as to why I decided to do podcasting in the first place. And it's the same ideology. It's that I'm a consumer. I know I'm a consumer. I'm actually a heavily addicted consumer. Like in reality, like I vape, I drink coffee nonstop. I'm constantly on TikTok and Instagram and all these apps. Like I consume, and I feel I need to start contributing. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to be in love with this beast of social media, I need to start contributing towards the same thing that I'm a part of. And it's that sharing aspect, you know, and that's the same thing as if you're going to, you know, meet someone, no matter what position they're in life, what can I do to contribute at the same time, you know, whether it be my ideology or my lifestyle or my charisma, my presentation, like there's got to be something that I can offer this person at the same time, you know?
Definitely. Like there was one guy I was speaking to, one of my brother's close friends, Shah, who owns like, he has like a few $100 million worth of property in Dubai. And when I was talking to him, he goes to me, I said to him, like, sometimes in life, I just feel like I'm not even moving. He said, mate, because he's like 50, he would be like probably mid 40s to early 50s. And he just goes, mate, he goes with his British accent, he goes, mate, you know me, I've reached towards the end of I've retired. I sold because he had was one of the first people to have disposable vapes.
Yeah.
And,
I was probably one of the first
in
people
China,
to buy them.
in China, and he's like, he can speak Chinese and everything. He has Chinese miss whatnot, but so I could see, even though he's Pakistani on the outside, he's Chinese full on the inside. But what was interesting is he said something when I asked him, all right, why does it feel sometimes I'm not moving? He said, mate, I've retired, and I just want to let you know that, you know, the difference between me and you. He said, you got at least another 20-year run on you. And he's like, if you just need a product or service and you're a couple $100 million in front, he's like, just remember that you have time on you, mate. My time's up. I've already retired.
Wow.
He's like, you got a good run on you. He's like, mate, just stick to what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, and like you'll be surprised, mate. It only takes one thing, and you're up big time. So, like, it was just a good reminder, you know. That's what's a good thing about being around some of these guys as well. It's like, it just to remind me that, oh shit, I'm not the only person on this path, and like, yeah, I'm getting there. I'm moving. Just try and enjoy the moment. It's almost like we have to remind ourselves.
Oh, bro, all the time.
Enjoy the moment.
It's very comforting for me when I have a conversation with someone who shares the feeling of drive, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just because, yes, I get to want more from the future and share this experience with someone else. I find a lot of relation in people who have things in their life that they just have to put up with and get through. Like for me, like editing's an easy one I always refer to as an example, because everyone that watches the podcast know I do it. You know, I have to edit a video for however long time it is. And while you're doing it, you just got to go through that. And it's nice to find that relation with people, no matter what their endeavor is. There's something that they're just sticking to, whether it doesn't pay the bills yet or not, something that's tedious, something that's taken up a lot of their time. I like that relation to know that, like, people struggle together, you know what I mean? Not just people high achieve together, people struggle together. And I'm going to use that to try and get to something that I've been wanting to ask you before this podcast even started. That's, how important do you think struggling is? And by struggling, I mean suffering, I mean like adversity, I mean like just feeling that feeling of being down amongst others. You know, how important do you think that feeling is?
Man, I think it's the biggest blessing. Like, to feel completely down and out. And when you said that, like, it just takes me to a dark place where I felt like extremely down and out, and it. Yeah, like what comes to my mind is, yeah, suffering. It just makes you a whole different animal. I think. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's so many people in the world that would go through so much suffering that I could not even fathom. Whether that be, you know, these extreme atrocities that have been done to them for no reason, or people who have just been in like a bad circumstances that they've grown up in third world countries with not many opportunities. So I'm not saying it to, you know.
Yeah, of course. Well, sorry to cut you off, but I'm going to put this in just to be... The hardest thing you've ever been through is the hardest thing you've ever been through.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. From one person who suffers through, an example might be torture, prisoner of war, as opposed to someone who had their missus leave them, or someone who got fired from their job. Like, if they've never been tortured, the hardest thing you've been through is the hardest thing you've been through.
That's a good point. Sometimes I think it's also the male side where it's just like, stop sobbing. No one wants to hear your story because no one really cares. You know, as males, we'll just accept that no one cares about how.
Yeah, I know. It's comforting, but it's also like, you know,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would say that without suffering, you cannot become a better person. Suffering allows you to realize that we're just, for me, it makes me realize I'm a human being, susceptible to pain, susceptible to being hurt, betrayed, and failing and losing. So I feel like suffering reminds us that we're human. I think for me personally, it's only through suffering where I'm humbled to now find a better means of becoming a better contributor to society.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in a sense that suffering is, I don't want to say it's one of the best things in life, because when you're suffering, it's clearly the worst possible scenario for your current circumstance. But with hindsight, suffering is what makes or breaks people, you know. I was actually going to start saying this point on a terms of like, suffering is the only reason people get better. But in reality, suffering can be the reason why a lot of people get worse. It takes a special kind of person to take suffering and use it to catapult themselves forward, or to be able to bury themselves deeper into a shit position in life. Like, some people take suffering, whether it be the form of a divorce, and they become an alcoholic and lose their children and lose their job and then end up on Centrelink living in some shit one-bedroom apartment. Some people take suffering in form of a divorce and decide, you know what, this is my opportunity to start that business, to be able to spend more time, to be able to play more sport, and be able to become the individual I never became because I had some nagging wife yelling at me every day. You know what I mean? Like, suffering is important, but I see it like a crossroad in life that everyone's going to get to. Everyone's got probably dozens of crossroads they're going to get to, and that will make or break any individual. If you do make it past suffering, it's the number one ingredient to success, I believe. I believe definitely. Number one.
Because we were talking, that's great you mentioned that, because I can't stand victims. You know, guys who you go to jail, like, and I've have a lot of friends that I've come across, they go to jail and then their whole highlight of their life is joining a gang in jail. Like, like, come on, it's not hard to join a gang in jail. It's not hard to stab someone. Like, let's face it, like, any illiterate can do that.
To be honest, if you can stab someone and you don't, that's harder than to stab them in the face.
That's exactly it. I love how you mentioned that point. So yeah, I find it very interesting on that side. And you also have the same thing. Like, the other thing that comes to my mind is there's also people that go into prison and then it's like go through hardship, let's say, or suffering, and then they make it as an excuse for being less than what they could be in life. And then there's the opposite of people who reform. I see like guys like Wes Watson and whatnot that actually make something of themselves, and they like use those experiences to catapult their whole career.
Yeah.
So it's like I think because I'm so fixated on the winners, like when no offense, like when I see the losers, I'm just like, nah, I don't want to be a loser. You know what I mean? I'm just focused on the winner.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, and as men, I definitely agree with you with the crossroads, but for me, it's just like the crossroads, either you end up a winner or a loser. I don't know. It's weird for me. That's what catapults me to do things because I do not want to be that loser.
Yeah. Well,
who's on the other side?
What that makes me think of is initially, and I say it on the podcast every now and then too. Patrick Bet-David, as we mentioned, is a high achieving, great, successful individual that we can look at for inspiration. But he believes, and he believed it before he made his riches, the only way to become rich is to become rich with the people around me. He didn't just try and climb the mountain on his own. He brought all his friends with him. He started the businesses and he went, you know, so it's not just solo activities that's going to make me great. And even if it did, what's the point of sitting on a private jet by yourself? You know what I mean? Wouldn't you rather help all the people around you get to their own position to be able to be on that private jet together?
Yeah.
And I think that's a very powerful, important thing in life. And to look at that crossroad of suffering and see the people who pushed past it, the winners in life. And if you neglect the losers in life, and I'm going to say losers with a hard fact of reality, like you're a loser. If you let life beat you, you are a loser.
Yeah.
And I believe it because I know what it's like to be one. Because in whether it be recent times of suffering or whether it be like the actual biggest times in my life where I have suffered, it's like I can see how at that moment I could have chosen to let life beat me. I can see it. Like that version of me exists. I just don't happen to be living as that version of me. Yeah. And to have the empathy to know that like, okay, I can see how I could have been that loser makes me want to be able to bring the losers and throw them into the other side of the line, you know, and just be like, yo, you don't have to be losing. You can be winning. And the more people that we drag up from the loser category, and the only way we can get there is to be able to relate to the fact that we could be them, but we're not, actually might mean that we are able to achieve higher levels of success in the first place, you know. It's not just going up, it's also bringing people up with us. Yeah. And I can only say that because I have more of a... I've been through enough times where I've been like, I'm just going to be a loser for a bit, you know what I mean? Like, life sucks, boo-hoo, why me? Yeah. So because I've lived as that person, it makes me very empathetic to people who let life beat them down. But there's no sugarcoating it. They're still a loser. Yeah, you know what I mean? We can't do what we talked about in the beginning of the podcast where allow a society of simple men who just let life, it's not worth it. I'm too lazy to go achieve more, and be like, participation award. Yeah, we can still be like, bro, you're a loser. Yeah, fact. If you want to become great, I'll help you become great. Yeah. But I'm not rewarding you for where you are in your life right now, you know?
And I think even with my kids, my wife at the start, she wasn't really feeling it. Like, she was a bit worried. I shouldn't say she wasn't really feeling it, but every time I would like correct my kids, for instance, my son has this tendency where he'll say, before he used to be like, oh, I have money. And he'd bring out his Monopoly money. I have money, Dad. I can get this. Like, wow. But, so he would ask for certain things like, oh, Mommy, I want biscuit. It's like, and when I'm around, I'm like, what do you want? He said, I want biscuit. Mommy, I want biscuit. It's like, I'm talking to you, son. Yeah. What do you want? So, I want biscuit, please. So, you want biscuit? Where's your money? Did you work for it? Did you help Mom clean up at least? Wash the dishes, do something? I'm like, I have money. So he runs in, he grabs Monopoly money.
Bro, that's cute as fuck.
He grabs his Monopoly money.
That's so cute, bro.
And like, don't get me wrong, like I thought it was cute, but I'm like, no, but he's gonna become a man one day. Yeah. So I'm probably gonna get hate for this, but I'm like, I look at the Monopoly money and I'm like, this is not real money. You get money from working for it, son. And then he just looks down sad. And then my wife's just like, because she just wants to go and hug him. I'm like, well, you stay there. This guy needs to learn a lesson now. It's like, if you want anything in life, you're going to have to be able to contribute. Are you contributing anything to help your mom, make your mom's life easier? He's like, oh, I'm like, go help your mom with the dishes. Even though the guy is like, struggles to do the dishes, like he makes more of a mess than anything else. It's just the fact that he's there feeling like he's helping. I need him to. So like, little things like that. There's no participation awards going just because you're cute. And then I go to other places and I see all these other kids, and then their mums and dads are just like, they stand up and they put their finger in a cake. That's not even their birthday cake. It's another kid's birthday cake. And I'm just like, growing up, like, that's a slap, you know, like that's My mum would pinch me under the table and she's like, wait till we get home, you know what I mean? I want to smash you, because my mum's like, you know, the typical Tongan woman, like, she's like, I want to smash you. How dare you embarrass me?
Yeah.
So like, and then like these kids now, and then what's the mom and dad's response? Oh, son, no, we can't do that. Oh, like, leave it. Like, and I'm thinking, you're just raising another simple man. You're just marrying another. You're actually raising up a loser. And then you say to the kid, after he's done all of that, he's playing and he's skipping around. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's wrong for kids to skip around and be happy. But this little kid's skipping around, and then he's just like, yeah, mom, I'm going to be a pilot. And the mom's like, yeah, baby, you're going to be anything you want. And I'm just looking at my missus like, what is my kids gonna grow up with? Like, this is wild.
Yeah.
You know, if my kid's skipping around and like saying I'm gonna be this, I'm like, you can't even use the toilet first. Like, you know what I mean? You can't even sit in your potty properly. Son, go sit on a potty, use the potty properly, and then okay, step 1 and then step 2, maybe learn your numbers, okay, and then step 3, there's a process in this. You can't be a pilot unless you're willing to follow the process. Unless you're able to follow the rules in this house. And like, you realize men don't even want to hold the values in the house, and then women, they're smart nowadays. They'll suck up to the kids to make the kids hella soft. And then after sucking up to the kids, they'll then talk down to their husband, or they'll play the game like, I don't even want to go there. Like, they play the game as in, yeah, baby, you're strong. Yeah, baby, you're hardworking. Yeah, baby, we're going to be this. It's like, stop lying to the bloke. You know what I mean? He's in a deeper delusion. He needs a slap because his father doesn't even slap him or discipline him. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I'm going into a rant, but like,
I love it.
It's just like, we're living in a society. Like, that's one thing I hate about society. That thing just came to mind when you mentioned like just the losers in society, and how like, I feel like losers are being groomed in the children. Like, because, no offense, the fathers are losers. Why? Because the fathers don't choose to be superheroes.
Yeah, of course.
And you don't have to be the number one guy. You don't have to have a Bugatti. You don't have to be the next Andrew Tate. No, you just have to be honest with yourself. Like, what happened to the good old days? Like, I'm a truckie and I'm proud. You know, I drive like this to this, and then I drive from here to Canberra and back. You know, I do those trips, but you know what? And then like, but look at my family. Look at this kid. This kid, he's studying here. You remember like proud Aussies back in the day? They were like, even though I'm a truck driver, like, I know where I'm heading and I love my life. Like, I'm proud. Do you know what I mean?
Damn.
It's just like, that is no longer the case anymore. That's what makes me sad.
I think that the biggest problem we have then...
angry.
I can tell you're angry about it. Passionate.
Yeah, passionate.
Yeah. I think that the biggest problem we have in today's society is that men do not... It's not that they don't have enough pride in what they do. It's that they don't do everything as best as they possibly can. You know what I mean? Like, it's that cleaner that cleaned the streets to make them as perfect as they could in these overseas countries that made it such a nice country to be in. Whereas you got cleaners in this country that are just like, I get paid by the hour. I'm just going to vacuum and then that's it. I'm not going to wipe down the trims. I'm not going to help with the dishes. Like, there is no pride. And I think that, as you said, it doesn't matter if you're a truckie or not. To be a good role model and to be a good leader means that you do everything to your capability to as best as possible. That's how you can lead the next generation of people to be high achieving, because you don't have to dream big. Really, you don't. You just have to know that you're doing everything in your possible power to do it to the best of its capability.
Exactly. And that's what the kids see. It's what society won't tell you. The kids see, like kids look at the father and they say, every time I see dad, he's working. If he's not working, he's training. And like when he comes to school, this is what I think. When he comes to school, to the schoolyard, all the kids are like, is that your dad? He's huge. Like, that's all the kids. They're basic. They're very primitive. For me, I see kids are like so much more authentic than adults. Adults filter between the line. What does he train for? Does he have something to hide? Is he insecure? It's like, bro, relax. You know what I mean? We know you're fanboying over it. Like, before your husband, you were nonstop looking at like what's that? All these celebrities with their shirt off. What's that, like Channing Tatum and all that? You were watching that all day, darling. Stop lying. Now that you're married, you're a changed woman. Yeah. But,
I know what you mean, but it's just. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are. It's just by living your life to the principles in which your habits are you're correct. Your habits are correct, and you're disciplined in which things you are choosing to be disciplined in. That creates motivation for people. You know, I don't necessarily just find my motivation from the Patrick Bet-Davids or the people that we look up, Andrew Tates and stuff like we mentioned. I find my motivation from the people around me who are doing their shit good. You know what I mean? They pump me the fuck up. The Joe Rogans of the podcasting world, bro, your league's above. You know what I mean? I can watch you and admire you from a distance, but it's like, where's the roadmap?
And they're not part of our team.
Yeah.
Like here now, it's like even though now we've developed a relationship, it's like, okay, he's still closer to me than Tate and all these other guys. This is what people forget.
Yeah.
It's like this guy adds so much more value to me because he's in my town. Like he's another, like you mentioned the Vikings earlier. He's another soldier that's like literally just a village or two or even in the same village as me. Yeah. So why am I going admiring the Romans when I got a fellow Viking with me just around the corner? Yeah. That's what people forget.
That reminds me of I made a post, man, it could have been a long time ago now, but it was at a time where I was deep reflecting on the Vikings because, to be honest, they're one of my favorite people to idolize. And it was like, I look at my life now and compare it to the Vikings, and I have this weird belief in reincarnation or unity or something that helps guide me to who I find my relation to from the past. But I was like, man, these guys were out on boats, traveling across the seas, going to conquer nations. Like, why do I feel such a intrinsic draw to those types of individuals? And it's like, I guess I am living that life now, but it's just in today's current circumstances. I'm on my theoretical boat, building an army around me of people who have the mindset of conquering not just the nation, but of wealth and health and happiness and distribution and shared community. Like, we're still those Vikings at the end of the day.
Definitely.
You know? We've still got that primitive nature, and we're building our army through our networking. You know, we're not raised in a small community of farmers and, you know, your people who would make the clothes and the forging of the things. Like, we're spread out across cities now and suburbs and towns, and we have to find our little tribes.
Yeah,
and
that's powerful. That just gave me goosebumps because one thing that came to my head was the amazing thing about today's day and age, which makes it even more, what makes us bigger conquerors than ever any other time in history, is like the Vikings just had that one sect. Now we have, like, I always talk about, like, every race has a superpower. And, like, if you can actually look beyond just what's going on in front, you'll be able to harness everyone's superpower and move together as a unit. Like, for instance, like now, let's say if I have a mate that's Indian, if I can teach him how to move in a way where he could capitalize the audience that can't see through, because let's face it, the majority cannot see through image, right? Majority can only relate to what they're accustomed to.
Yeah.
So like there's certain audiences, let's say my Indian mate or an African mate and whatnot that can reach that I can't reach. So if I can teach this person the tools, this is what the ultra successful do. They teach these certain people the tools. Now they have an audience, and even though I can receive a clip, and now I have access to a whole new audience.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's wild. Crazy. I never thought about that. To be honest, that leads me to another point too. I'm going to take a pause on this thing that we're talking about because you mentioned race and different people being able to see themselves through who they can imagine themselves being, I guess is a good way to put it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I guess I do naturally follow people who I guess kind of not look like me, but live a very similar life to the life I'm be living. I don't have many people that I watch from other countries or other nations. I'm not following any Russian fucking podcasting, whether they speak in English or not. Like, I'm not following the lives of people who are living in the coldest places of the world nor the hottest places in the world. Like, I kind of follow people who live a very similar lifestyle to me. So I guess based on what race you are and what skin color you are or what language you speak, you probably do look at those people the most, you know, without me even realizing it until now. But the point I was going to get to was, and we mentioned it in notes before we even did the podcast when we touched base, that the question was like more in relation to racism in Australia and things like this. And I was going to lead to this through the question of suffering, because suffering and adversity are very similar, and it's only wanting change that makes change. So I was going to ask you, from your opinion, do you see much race involvement in the way society is, especially here in Australia? Because, and I'll get to my 2 cents after I ask you yours.
Yeah, I think racism is like key tool for me personally, for the elites, whether people believe it or not, I just say like the guys who are truly in control, for the elites to maintain control over the masses. So that's how I see racism coming from. Have I experienced racism? Was that part of the question?
Yeah, just like, do you see it involved in today's society more than I might see it, you know?
Yeah, like, for instance, like the other day I was, not so long, like a few months ago, I was driving in a car and some guy was like right on my tail. And I sort of like, sort of cut him off. So I'm like, I'm sorry. But this guy wasn't feeling it. But when I cut it, it was like I indicated left and then, what's it called? And then I realized it was that Costco turn. Then I realized I had to do a U-turn. So instead of going left, I just indicated right and then went around. And this guy was just right at my back the whole time. And then as I turned around the roundabout, I'm like, okay, maybe he wants to fight, maybe not. I don't know. Let me just try and ignore this. Because I know if I hop out and do something, most likely I'll be the one to get in trouble. So then I turned left again into that hub. And then the guy was still behind my back. So I'm like, oh, please. In my head, I'm like praying to God, like, please help me because I don't want to do anything that's going to be silly. And then I turned right, like to try and go around the long way around the parking, the hub spot, like trying to come around. And then this guy was just kept beeping the horn and putting his middle finger up. So then I'm like, if I keep driving around, this guy's just going to get more confidence. He's going to do something stupid. So I'm just going to hop out. So anyway, that was the thought pattern. So I hop out and I'm like, you got a problem, mate? Mm-hmm. And after that, he's like, he hops out, like he's like a bogan guy. He hops out, white bogan guy, hops out and he's just like with his fist, And I'm like, you got a problem? Come. I'm like, you got a problem? Like, just come. Yeah. And then after that, he just like, he's looking at me. He's like, go back to your effing country. Oh. I'm like, I'm from fucking Australia, man. What are you on about? Yeah. And after that, he just hops in the car and I turn around and like I see, no joke, like 5-6 white people just looking at me with their arms crossed. So my heart drops. I'm like, if I decked this guy, like which would have happened, you know what I mean? He would have came in for a fist and I would have probably just broken his nose with a jab and maybe threw his head through his own ute or something. I would have got done for assault and they would have said I was the aggravator. So when I say it, like, is racism, for me, it's like, it's subtle, but with the masses to think a certain way. Then on the same flip side, I've actually experienced so much more racism from my own kind. Like, being half Tongan, half African, half Nigerian. Polynesians are extremely racist people. Like, I'm sorry for Polynesians out there. I'm just being honest. Like, I'm Polynesian myself, so I can say it. And like, they'll for my father, like my grandfather's funeral, they were openly saying in Tonga, like, what's this nigger doing here? Like, what's this nigger doing here? Whose son is this? And they'll say, oh, his mom, Salote, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, what the hell? She married a nigger? Like, why the hell is this nigger? I've been at dance parties where, like, Tongans would just be screaming out, like, get that ugly, dirty nigger off the thing. Like, screaming, get that dirty, ugly, dirty nigger off the stage. So, like, yeah, there is racism, but I see it more or less like it's with the masses who have been programmed. This is why I'm so anti not being educated, why I'm so anti being fixated on the simple mind, why I'm so anti all of that, because I can see that the fight is with those ideologies. The fight is not with a race. It's I've realized in society, I think through being educated, you realize like the fight's actually it's always been from the start of time of humankind on ideology. It definitely so. And religion was the next thing to come from ideology at the end of the day. From the way you believe, from the way you think to the way you believe became the next thing. So then religion took the most heat from it, and religions usually spread out across nations, and people would fight between nations, which would be between races because of religion. But you're right, it does all stem from ideology originally before that. In my personal experience, I don't see racism, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see it. Even like from my perspective, like I spent a lot of my life working in Bankstown, and I was basically the only white guy surrounded by like mostly lebs and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and even then,
the jokes would come my way, and I'd be not put down, but like they'd become at my expense. But I still never noticed the racism. And when people experience like what you've experienced, like with those people saying slurs and things like that, from people that are also sharing the same DNA at the same time, like it gives me a better perspective as to how it can exist in the world without me noticing it. But I'm also curious, like, is that just one form of, what's the opposite of familiarity? It's indifference. You know what I mean? Like, are they just finding any form of indifference to pick on, or is it just race that plays a part in? Is racism the problem, or is indifference the problem in the first place? It's not having that relatability. And I find myself fortunate because I'm very relatable. I can sit down and have a conversation with someone and truly understand what they're going through because I am not just empathetic, but I'm interested, I'm curious, like it doesn't matter if I'm with 100 millionaires, I'll find a way to just hang out with them. And I feel like indifference is the thing that probably might come from insecurity, at the end of the day. Maybe it's not feeling like you can fit in with someone. And if people are only naturally, as we discussed, following and watching the people that they feel like they can imagine themselves being because of skin color, then maybe it's an insecurity at the end of the day that makes people have that racism because they can't see themselves fitting in with them.
Definitely,
not that they can't see them fitting in with their own.
Yes, definitely. It's the whole idea that I definitely realized that too, that it's over time you realize that it's just the fact that people are not happy with themselves, so they have to find a reason to be unhappy with others.
Yeah.
And so like now when I hear these slurs, when I hear slurs like this, it doesn't really happen very often. When I was small and more timid, like as in when I was in like school, when I was like primary school, high school, when I was a bit more skinnier and like I would hear it more.
Yeah.
But now I think because like
big, jack, tall,
tall, like
confident,
confident. Like I smile, I'm like, oh, do you really think I'm ugly? Cool. That's perspective, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm pretty good looking, so like, I think that's why it does. I don't. It's just like, okay, now how do I become the superhero to let everyone know that we are all part of the human race?
Yeah.
And like, this is what I love about history as well. The study of Babylon. I'm not sure if you heard of the story.
I'm familiar with...
Babel. Tower of Babel.
Yeah. I'm familiar. If you don't mind touching just familiarize me with a little bit more about it.
Okay, so the Tower of Babel, there was a point of history. It's proven by multiple books as well. When I say like multiple religions, definitely within Islam as well as Christianity and Judaism as well. But pretty much there was a tower which humankind at one stage all spoke the same language, and basically they built a tower, and humans got together and they said, we're going to build a tower to heaven. So God actually had to intervene in the tower because they would have built. God said with his own mouth in the Bible, in the Quran, like all these different texts, he said humans, if they work together and they speak the same language, they're unified, they can do anything. God said it with his own mouth because we were made in his image.
Yeah.
So what happened was he had to actually intervene, and this is why you have different languages.
Yeah.
Like Chinese, all these other stuff. It's because God had to intervene to confuse the people because he knew they would have done everything in rebellion to God.
Yeah.
Because, know, humans being naturally selfish, the whole concept is us humans are naturally selfish. However, when we're united, we can accomplish anything.
Yeah. And you know what? I often think about that fact in itself, where it's the selfish nature that we share in having indifferences that actually creates so much advancement as a human race. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like uniting as a human race wouldn't leave advancement because we would all be sitting around in enlightenment. You know what I mean? We'd be the monks who don't want to achieve anything more because we are all comfortable in our own skin.
And you know what I found was incredible as well, I got to bring this as well.
Yeah.
Every situation I now go through, let's say if someone does make a slur, I realize like God needs me to hear that because I might have my head up in the clouds. So instead of having the perception which before was like, why doesn't this guy have that or that guy? It's like, well, you have a completely different journey, mate. Your journey, you need to cop that, and you need to still love that person, because that person is, if probably he's even closer to me than you are, without you noticing.
Yeah.
So it's like that state of humility where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. So I was made the way I am, so that I could be more understanding of other people, so that I could be less judgmental on other people. But the hard thing is in life, like you said, people reach the crossroads, and most losers would say like, oh, now this justifies me for being a criminal.
Yeah.
This justifies me for hurting other people.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so cool that you said that, and I'm going to say one thing before I get to the next topic, but it's the indifference in humanity that made things like World War II such a devastating part of human existence, especially in modern society. And it's like, I don't want to say but to take away from the devastation that has happened. Although, in that same existence, we've had so many more leaps in advancement from that period, technologically, medically, ideologically, like, and that has helped future versions of ourselves come together as a more spread out, economy-based, global trading network, you know?
Definitely.
And that came from examples being like the scientists that were involved in building the weapons, who then got taken on to become NASA astronaut engineers. And then not just that, but like Mercedes-Benz and I think brands even like Hugo Boss and Coco Chanel, things like these were because of World War II. They were investment and advancing in war, which then after war, they ended up having these businesses to then grow to create the fastest, bestest cars, to have the best looking clothes, to have, like, even though we have indifferences that create problems, the ones that we've already been through and succumbed and overcame has led to a better society today. So in our own lives, when we do get faced those diversity or, you know, discrimination or hatred from others, when we do get through them, that's going to make our own lives better on a personal, individual kind of level as well. And I believe that what God is not just a all-powerful, all-knowing being, metaphorical father figure in the sky. It's every interaction that can possibly be taking place. It's like, I think when I think of an encounter with God, it might be that some people hear a voice in their head, or it might be that when some person was going to jump off the bridge, someone on their jog ran past and said, "Beautiful day, isn't it?"
Definitely.
You know what I
agree with
mean? That's God, in my opinion. That's God using that person to save that person. Yeah. So then if that's true, if someone says something to me that I don't like, you know, faggot, you know, anything, right?
Exactly.
It might make me think to myself, like, who the fuck is this guy to say this to me? But maybe that's God showing me something I didn't need to see in the first place, you know?
You should become more of a, I realize, like, from all the hate and more things you're exposed to should make you love people more. That's what I realized the key is. But it's so hard, right?
Oh, bro.
It's just like suffering, the point we spoke on before. It's like suffering, like what's so pleasant about suffering? What's so pleasant about anything negative? But like if you can draw the theory of the diamond, how under pressure is where the diamond is made. It's like you need that pressure, so you become addicted to it.
Yeah.
It's like throw more things at me, but then when more things are thrown at you, you're just like, whoa, okay, this is a bit too much. Can you slow it down?
In my own life recently, I got hit with a big reality check, and I went like, man, why me? Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't get it. And then it was like, maybe I'm not looking at it. Maybe I'm meant to learn something through this process. And then I'd start to decipher it and be like, oh, I can see this being beneficial. And then something else would happen. I'm like, what the fuck, man? I thought I was getting somewhere. Like, fuck. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, fuck the universe. Like, fuck God at the end of the day. Like, why do I have to suffer through this shit, you know? And it just, because it was perspective, problem with perspective. But then once I got to a position where I'm like, you know what? I can handle this. This is meant for me. God only tests his most capable soldiers.
100%.
Like, fucking oath. And then I thought, you know what? Fuck yeah, you got more shit? What else you got, motherfucker? Give me more. And then he give me more. I'm like, bro, I'm sorry.
It's like one of my mentors, I said to him, I'm like, because he's so wise, one of those guys, like my mentor in Germany, are very spiritually driven. Like, this guy's just, and when I asked him, I said, what can I do to like get your way of thinking? Because like he's one of those guys, like just proper, like, and because he's Asian, he's like he gives me like that monk vibe, like, but he's he's been in special forces, like a complete animal for special training. He trained the special forces in Malaysia. He's a doctor in his own right, but just spiritually extremely grounded, like very spiritually grounded. Like, and I asked him, like, what can I do to acquire your wisdom? Like, I would love to have your wisdom. And he laughed, and I said, wait, I just answered what I was asking you. And I'm like, in God's timing. And I realized what I meant by in God's timing was, if I had the same mindset as him to acquire that amount of wisdom, I need to be willing to go through certain hardship and have the right outlook on that hardship. Am I really ready to have all of that now? No, I'm struggling. Like, I'm already struggling with my temptations, with things that I have to overcome now. No thanks. Like, when the time comes, I should be prepared for that. It goes back to that whole 1,000 employees. Like, when the time's right, I can take that. Well, now maybe I might, without me noticing, I'll neglect time with my children. I'll neglect certain things like date nights. Like, my wife's now putting pressure. Like, I need to set certain dates for date nights. So it's like I'll neglect date nights with my wife. Like, all these things, like, I will miss out on. It's like, maybe just enjoy the moment in time now.
Yeah.
And then,
that's that mentality that one of my, I would call him a mentor in a way. He's someone that he's been older than me. I've known since I was young, who I've always, when he speaks, I listen, and he just happened to get me at the right point in my life with fighting and training and martial arts, that he was a good inspiration. So when he speaks, I listen. So he said to me on our episode, like, most people want to be like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be, but truth is, most people just want to be the type of person who spends $1 million. No one wants to be a millionaire because that person budgets, that person plans, that person schedules. And he also said something like, people want to be worth $20 million, but to be worth $20 million, you'll run out of money within a year because you have not learnt the skills in which it takes to be able to be the person who owns $20 million. It's the same thing.
Definitely.
If you want to have that wise wisdom that mentor of yours had, it's like, if you were given that now, you didn't learn any lessons along the way, and we did touch base on that at the earlier stage of the podcast, where if you have the mindset, you never lose. You only learn the lessons you need to learn on your way to winning in the first place, So it's cool to know what you can become and not want to be there yet, That's kind of what I was saying, that I had that realization where let's not try and get to the future as fast as possible. Let's live now as best as possible and let the future come to me as quickly as it's willing to get to me, because I'm going to go through what I need to go through now to get there,
Like Mike Tyson, he went through, what was that, like over 200 million?
Yeah.
In a span of how many years? Like 3-4 years?
Yeah,
the guy was just buying tigers.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows, and people would look at it and be like, this guy's stupid. It's like, no, anyone. I would, if I was exposed to that at that age, I probably would have done the same thing. Like, when you're not from a place of judgment, you realize, like, everything happens for a reason. But like, now, what person has it made him? He has now a better testimony because he spent all that money than he would have using it wisely. Like, you got the opposite extreme with Floyd Mayweather, where he's used the money wisely and all these things, but it's like, but who's a more relatable character? Mike Tyson or Floyd Mayweather?
The most relatable character is whatever stage you're at currently in your life. If you're a millionaire now, you've got that relatability. If you've got no money, you're Mike Tyson, you know what I mean? Because he spent all his money because he didn't have the mindset yet to be able to achieve it. You're relatable to those people in that same circumstance at the end of the day, just based on situations.
Exactly. And for me, no matter what, Mike Tyson's the hero.
Yeah.
Me, hands down. But not, people can say he's a dumbass. Obviously, people are always going to look at the worst, the bad traits. But for me, it's like, no, that guy is actually genuine with himself. Don't get me wrong, Floyd Mayweather is a hero in his own light, but Mike Tyson shows vulnerability. I respect the man that has vulnerability. I respect the man that can come out and say, I messed up. I made mistakes. But guess what? I'm still going at it.
Yeah.
I'm still going hard in the pain. I'll still make money back. Won't be as much money as I did before, but I'm still at it. And I'm a human just like you guys are. But it's like humankind, it's like we want to sabotage and put down those guys who are actually true men, who are open and vulnerable. Then the men who are showing themselves as perfect, but like they're back behind the scenes, they're bashing their wife. You never know what all these other guys, right? We don't know if Patrick Bet-David behind this, what's going on. I'm not saying I highly doubt it, but I'm just saying, like, we can sometimes be so judgmental on the people who have made the mistakes and are open about it, and then we're soft on the guys who are like hide their shit.
I got 2 points on that. First one being on that form of like people who bash their wives and stuff. It was a crazy realization for me. The more I start to spread myself out into more situations, that shit happens on way more of a regular basis than we think.
Yeah,
and to
it
say
does.
something as wild as Patrick David might be doing it is like, it's actually a 1 in 10 chance, to be honest with you. Like that shit happens absurdly.
Yes.
It's fuck. It's crazy how much that does happen,
Yeah.
especially in today's society. And to be honest, we're not even going to get into reasons why, to be honest with you. But the second point is, I don't think it is necessarily a bad thing that we have in today's society the fact that people want to cut down the people who are being vulnerable and put light onto those who are doing well, or vice versa, because what we naturally love, and whether people want to admit it or not, I think, is that we love hearing the story of the tower that fell over. We love it when someone had it all and lost it all. Like, it's a good feeling to be entertained.
That's
you know
a
what I
good
mean?
point.
From an entertainment point, if Jake Paul went and lost all his money, or when Jake Paul gets knocked out, everyone's like, that's what people want to see. You know what I mean? If Floyd Mayweather lost his 50th fight against, I shouldn't have said Paul again, Logan Paul, but whether he lost any of those fights along the way, that's what people want to see. People want to see Conor McGregor lose, because people love the rise, but people also love watching the fall. And it's interesting to know that what people actually love more than that is people who got back up and made greatness again.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that's
a
the
good
thing
point.
that we love. So that's why we find the relatability between those who are open and vulnerable about the mistakes they've made, because it's comforting knowing that, like, we can make mistakes. We don't have to be perfect. We can, and that's why we like it when people fall in the first place, because it's like, all right, sweet, he's not better than me. He's not the chosen one.
Yeah.
But then when he gets back up and goes again, then that's that natural feeling of like, fuck, when I fall, I can get back up. You know what I mean? There is no losing. There's just learning. You know, it's powerful. But
It's brutal for us, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because like when we're like making our grind and things, people are so quick to be like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't do that, and then when it's almost like it's nice to have the support when you're on your journey, not when it's all complete.
Oh yeah.
You realize why the wealthy really do keep away from majority of people, because they've had the experience of knowing that like most people just disappointed, because it's just the natural envious nature of humankind.
Yeah, I find that happening all the time. Like, what we're recording now is
And
probably...
it's from the losers.
Yeah, bro. Like,
What is this?
there's no question. It's always... hate only comes from below.
Yeah.
You can't punch down, you know?
Yeah.
This is probably episode like 97, 8. I think we're recording now, 99 even. Like... And I've had mates now in my life, even mates, acquaintances, people I know, they'll say things like, bro, I can't believe you're still going. Like, I knew when I started episode 1, I'll do 1 a week for the rest of my life. There's no obstacle that will get in my way. This is priority. Money comes second, and this doesn't pay the bills. Like, I've quit jobs, I've maneuvered schedules, I've pulled episodes out of my ass, I've hustled to get to this point. I'm going to keep going. But the interesting thing is, people have said to me along the way, like, bro, I just can't believe you're still doing it. Like, they were betting on me not getting to this level of consistency, you know, like, and that's a bit of a motivator, you know what I mean? Like, if you couldn't see it, bro, it's your loss, you know what I mean? Like, I could see the vision from the beginning, and at least now maybe you've got the support that's going to help, that collective pool of energy that's going to help propel me to keep going. But like, if you didn't see me in the first place, bro, I'm not bringing you along with me.
Yeah.
When I make it, you're not eating, bro.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's the mindset.
The last, what I kind of wanted to end the podcast with was, I'm glad you bring it up first, which was God, you know, the belief in something greater than our own pride and ego. What is your relationship with the word belief? Like, not necessarily tell me exactly what you believe. I'm not trying to pressure you into that, but like, how would you define your belief?
Believing that there's something higher than me that holds me accountable for everything I do.
Okay.
And I'm scared. I guess I'm not perfect. I've made many mistakes. I still make mistakes, but just knowing that having favor with a being that is for me the representation of complete love, honesty, integrity, everything that humanity suffers from, which is me as a person, having that person as a guidance, as a guide, just gives me, I guess, peace and clarity. I think at the end of the day, that's all I want, peace and clarity. Because you, like, with this journey of life, you just realize, like, you can have everything. Like, you get a nice car, like, give it a month, and then it just becomes normal. You can have a beautiful woman, no matter how beautiful she is. Like, after a month, it's just another woman. You can, like, she smells like, you know what I mean? Like, could you at least brush your hair today? You know what I mean? Like, But the first month, I'm like, man, telling all the boys, like, man, watch me. I'm going to get this one. Like, how long you reckon it'll take me? 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get a number and we'll link up. And then it's like 1 month down the track. Same with cars. Everything in this world, what I'm trying to point out is, like, everything in this world, nothing brings satisfaction. Nothing brings peace. So, like, just to have being that I connect with, that can just tell me that everything's okay, you know, that you're loved regardless, but you also have an important mission to serve. Like, I put you with a mission to be a superhero. Like, I think that's my relationship with belief. Hey?
Yeah, that's a good answer too. I find that it does blow my mind a little bit, but I still have that level of understanding how people don't have a belief. Agnostic is the word, where you believe there is nothing. You know, that's what agnostic is. Yeah. I'm more understanding for people who don't believe. They're open to the idea, but they just don't believe. Yeah. Agnostic is insane. To believe there is nothing is crazy, because for those who do believe, everyone that I meet and speak to finds so much comfort and reward, and it guides them to be a better individual. They are less overwhelmed, less stressed, less anxiety. They have a clearer path ahead of them, and it's almost a natural human feeling to be able to experience it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, for those who do believe, a path with God, which is a great metaphor, does summarize how you feel in your soul. Yeah. You know what I mean? You feel like you've got a guidance system there in your life. In my life, I found belief at a later part in my life, because no one I know in my family anyway is religious, or even, I'm not going to say they're not open to it, but no one's practiced any form of openness at the end of the day. But as soon as I started to become to that point where I'm like, let's just try it out. Let's just see if there's someone who will answer my callings or my prayers, or let's just be thankful in the first place. Like, everything just started to unravel. Like, bro, this is literally my playground that I've been given. Yeah. And it's not just from a point of ego, like, but I do believe this is my planet. This is my world and my earth, and everything that happens is a lesson for me to learn, and every conversation I have is destined for me. But it's also happening for you in your world. It's also happening for Shreyas in his world. Like, it's a crazy dance that we're all a part of, that every single person we interact with was meant for us to be able to learn from, to be like them or to not be like them. Yeah. A conversation we had 10 years ago is key information we needed 10 years later. Like, and God is the only possible way to describe that.
Definitely.
It's crazy that people can't believe. So,
and it's sad, because it's like, what else are you living for?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're living for what? To buy more houses and more cars? Like, how many cars can you have and be happy? Like, you know, like, how? And then the generation that follows, it's like, okay, what do they have to look forward to? Why should they respect you as an elder if you don't even have a dynamic? Like, let's say, just in the concept of believing in God allows me to know, at the back of my mind, people who are older than me, I have to respect them. Why? Because they have, with God, it's like the further back you go in time, the wiser humankind has been. So, like, it's in your innate nature to respect those that have come previously before you. When you take out that whole concept, it's like, and you believe in an evolutionist ideology, like, it's almost, now the mindset is, okay, we get smarter as time goes on. And the problem with that is, it's good in one concept. In one way, you could say, you fluff up our ego and you tell humankind that, we're getting smarter as a human race, look at the accomplishments we made. But the problem with that is, now you have the next generation which says, okay, with the knowledge I can now acquire, I'm ahead of you.
Yeah.
So, like, so without them noticing that they can't draw from the wisdom of the past, which is funny, because that's where all the wisdom comes from. Yeah. If you look at any religion or any belief, they search through the past scriptures. They look at whether you're a Freemason, whether you're a God-believing person. Like, they look into deep ancestral roots on how things move, because it's actually quite simple.
Yeah.
Everything in humanity is simple. Like, people make it as if it's so hard to make, to get to that level of making, making hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's like, but we have multiple examples that give us a blueprint in the past.
And the examples are so simple. Like
everything's so simple. Yeah, Alex Hormozy. Oh, he's great. Right. I love Alex Hormozy.
Me too. I've been on a trend with him lately, just listening to everything he says, and he breaks it down. Simplest things.
It's very simple, and if you look at all the keys to life, it's so simple, and it's interesting how I always like to go back to it, like how the elites make it as if it's complicated. Education system makes it as if it's complicated. Like, you got to follow a strict guideline. It's like, no, the health laws come natural to us. We know we're naturally inclined to drinking water. It's just, we just over time have just gotten used to the sugar. We're naturally inclined to being bad people to other people, like naturally inclined for our own selfish gain. It's like, but society has told us that no, we're naturally good people.
Yeah.
You know, so like they've switched the whole dynamic to make things complicated, which really isn't complicated. It's funny, right? Because if everyone knew that the world's so simple, like everything moves, so, you don't have to be a genius to move to the top of the food chain. It's like people would, I don't know. It's wild that people don't know this stuff.
Well, I've still got a strong belief in the fact that because everyone takes turns in which getting their moments of greatness, you know, everyone gets their opportunity to do something monumental. Everyone can decide to wake up tomorrow and be the type of person that becomes the best UFC fighter in the world. Everyone can decide to do that. Some people don't have the exposure to what the UFC is until they're 25. Some people get the exposure when they're 7 years old, you know, like everyone gets a moment that's their moment to become great. But because everyone takes turns, and I'll come back to this in a second, but everyone taking turns in their moment to become greatness is like everyone takes turns in every realm of endeavor in life. Like suffering, like we mentioned, it's not that like, why me? Why do I have to go through suffering? It's my turn to suffer now, you know? And because it's my turn to suffer now, someone else isn't suffering. And then when I'm not suffering anymore, unfortunately someone else is. But it's also a good feeling knowing that, okay, it just happens to be my turn, but luckily someone else is going to suffer after me, you know? It's both sides of the same coin. But when everything's great and everything's going perfectly, it's just your turn to have everything going perfectly. Guess what? Next, you're going to get faced with a mad obstacle. Next, your whole world's going to crumble around you. You might be nervous. That I see feelings and emotions and ideologies as like a living conscious being that swims through this human race and just goes through people one at a time. You know what I mean? It's my turn to be happy, but that's going to swim into the next guy. And that explains that positive effect we can have on other people by sharing our smiles to make someone else smile, because it's now swum through us into that person. And when I'm angry and I yell at someone else, he's going to go yell at someone else because that beast has swum through me, through him, through them.
Definitely. And it makes us arrive at that, what I like to call the flow state, where everything becomes neutral. Remember, as a kid, you see a lollipop and you get super excited. And then as teenage years, you get a first girl that's like the prettiest girl in the classroom, you get super excited. And then everything becomes neutral. You see the lolly and now you're like, you're happy. You're like, okay, but this is what the lolly will do to me. And this, you know, you see the girl and you're like, okay, this is the pros and cons of this relationship. And then you look at other areas of life the same way. And I realized every single situation of suffering puts us in that flow state where we become neutral. So I like watching like guys who've like made their millions. I love this. And then like, they're like 60, 70 years old and you're asking them, it's like, what do you do? How do you spend your money? And they're just like, honestly, like I just chill with my family. And like, it's just very, very simple things, right? It's like, oh, so you don't buy the car or this and that. It's like, no, I'm not about that. Most of them say like, that's actually how you invite trouble. That's how you invite suffering. You know, so it's interesting because you start to realize like everything is to put us in that flow state of just being neutral, happy, but never overly excited or like
not to
like
be reactive.
You're no longer reactive.
Yeah, I think that it's fine to let emotions flow through us, like it be suffering, happiness, excitement, whether it be in the form of a lolly or a girl or a sports car. But to feel it is one thing, to let it come out of you as an expression is another. Like, you don't have to react based on your emotions. You can feel them. It's like when something makes you sad, you can feel it, but you don't have to go cry about it. You know what I mean? You can just feel what that feeling is.
Yeah.
Like,
and embrace it. And then it's amazing because then through that, like you said, you start going through the thought process. And these thought processes, like, it actually gets fine-tuned when you're allowing that yourself to feel the full emotion.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether it be anger, frustration. Like, I've noticed there's so much power in just being like, you know what? I'm so sad. I'm so angry at the world. Like what you said earlier was so powerful. I'm so angry at everything. Like, I hate everything. Nothing makes sense. And like, just to be in that place is powerful.
Yeah.
When you choose the right thoughts, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And what I was circling back to that point of like everyone taking turns and allowing that feeling to either stop at you or flow through you is the same thing as everyone's turn for greatness. It's swimming through the crowds and everyone's getting their moment to shine. And that fact alone makes so much more sense when I think about the fact that people do shine above others. You know, it makes sense why some people are winners and some people are losers, because if everyone was winners together and everyone in society could see the things we're talking about, where it's the simple things in life, if everyone could see that, there would not be a chance for people to help each other when other people are suffering because it's their turn, because everyone's got the same level of awareness together, which means if everyone was thinking as simply as possible, when one person suffers, everyone suffers. That's the end of humanity. It's because of the fact that we are all experiencing things at different times that makes us work so much better together, to be able to help each other out when we need it, to be able to lend sugar to our neighbor when he needs sugar. Because if everyone was as aware of the simple things in life, then there would be no balance. It would just be one state of consciousness spread out across 8 billion people. And when things go bad, we're all fucked.
That's a good point.
There's no one to help us. There's no one to look up to make us want to achieve more.
Because you wouldn't even realize, like, the people in life that you thought, because one thing that comes to my mind is also, when you mentioned that, was the people that you meet in life that you don't expect to help you or you may think is your enemy. It's funny, like 4 or 5 years down the track, they're just like, what can I do to help? Can I buy your product or service? Yeah. And then the ones who you think is your best friend and like you've done everything with, you've shouted him, you've done all these things, like you guys have guys have been childhood friends. I've had a situation like this, and then it's just like they just turn into an enemy. Like they become envious of your biggest hater. Yeah. So that's what comes to mind when you say that. There's the place where if everyone did think the same, then where would humanity stand? Yeah. But then also the flip side, what I don't like about today's society is, there's many things I don't like about today's society, but I feel like even though you are a loser, the only reason why I label them as loser is because they have chosen to hate on other people for continually choosing a path of whether it be of growth.
Yeah, and
it's not even use self-enlightenment, because they'll get cut and they'll say, "Oh, what are you trying to say? You're smarter than us." No, you guys haven't chosen growth. You've just chosen to stick. If you're sticking to the same 9-to-5 job, and if you're proud of it, that's good. You've been doing it 15 years old, and then after your 9-to-5 job, you think that gives you the right to talk about other people who are on a different journey, then you are a loser. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
It's also not taking accountability that makes people stand out from being losers to being winners. If you are a victim of the world and boohoo, woe is me, why me, they have it luckier, I'm unfortunate, like it's my circumstances, it's because this person did me wrong, it's because I got robbed, it's because someone took advantage of my business. Like, it's excuses that lead people to becoming losers because no one's taking accountability. Like, if it's me in my life, I try to take as much accountability for any possible situation that goes wrong. It doesn't matter if it's as easy as a girl left. To be honest, it's my fault. It's her loss, but it's my fault. Yeah. You know, if I don't have the sports car yet, it's not because I haven't found the money or I'm not ready, because I haven't bought it yet. Like, everything that can possibly go wrong is my fault. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't. They think that the world is not out to get them, but it's unfair, it's circumstantial, it's luck, it's like that guy just happened to be born into a rich family, but if we take accountability for every action that comes our way, we can learn from that and become better. Make sure it doesn't happen again.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? I won't get fired next time because it's not that the company is losing money. It's because I wasn't a good enough worker to keep them there to make more money, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe it's because I need to propel into a different industry. Maybe I need to start my own thing that's going to allow me to be able to make funds for my family. Maybe God's giving me that push to make this step earlier in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the things that a lot of things come to mind with this whole society in general. But yeah, I definitely think that what you mentioned with the whole concept of there's a lot of things that come to mind, like with the crossroads, not only the crossroads where people have to make that decision, but also with the greatness flowing. I'm really going to think on that concept because I like that concept where we all have a moment of time in greatness, but it's now it's up to the people who are viewing to be able to like channel and find out what their greatness is, you know, and like that greatness, once again, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be like the next, like you're a superhero as long as you're doing the best you can do in life. You know?
Definitely. And it is the people who are shining above the rest that is actually the beneficial tool needed for the people who are not, because now they have that motivation, they have that blueprint in front of them, they have that path that they didn't imagine to become a possibility. Like, it's been done before, it can be done again, but it can be done better next time.
Can I share one story before we,
of course.
But there's this one story that comes to mind where I read it from this book, Psychology of Money, and there was like I mentioned this one before, right? Like there was two guys. It starts off with the case study of two men. One man was a full-time cleaner, no educational background, immigrant. The other guy was very well educated from Harvard University. His network, crazy network you could imagine, like with being part of the whole club of the Harvard, studying in Harvard Uni and everything. And he also made a significant amount of money, like hundreds of millions of dollars. This is what's on paper, so God knows how much he would have had off the books as well. And this is back in the day too, so like hundreds of millions back then is so much more now.
Billion.
And he at the end of, like, he examines both the case. He goes both into depth with both these stories. And one thing that I found interesting is like the cleaner ended up dying a millionaire and even his wife was surprised that he had any money. His kids didn't even have a clue. Like, how's dad worth worth a few million? We thought he was just a janitor. That's crazy. But then they looked at his spending habits and they found that the dad was just like really would spend conservatively, and all his excess money would go into like good investments and whatnot. And then this other guy who was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, international networks, that you couldn't even imagine. He ended up committing suicide he couldn't even live his whole life out. So then that case study has always played out from my mind since I read that book. It's like and it says, after it says the case study on these two individuals, it says we should learn a little bit from both, from the guy who's made like a ton of money and killed himself because he realized that he lost the money on one deal after I think it was the global financial crisis in 2008. He lost everything. He's like, he killed himself. He couldn't stand to break the news to his wife and whatnot. Their lifestyle and things would have been, how is he going to explain it? He lost it all. And then the cleaner, taking out the pros and the cons from the cleaner. And then it's just, that has always played on my mind because it's always made me realize that at the end of life, it's like, what is everything for? I don't know, that's always come across my mind. It's just, since reading that thing, it's just, what is life for?
I find that I question that a lot in my own personal life anyway. I always think, what am I doing it for? I think you're very fortunate. I'm not going to say it's just God's gift to have given you the life you're living. It's also the person you are who has presented himself to have the wife and the kids and, the mindset you have. And having that is what I believe it's for. I believe it's not about the money. I've realized that even if you have a partner and you want to go out and achieve everything and you're just making crazy money and you're never home and this and that, it's like in the back of your mind, you might be thinking to yourself, like, I'm doing this for my partner. I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for the children I haven't even had yet, my grandchildren. I'm doing this for a legacy. I'm building a life for them. But the truth is, I think what we are doing it for is not what we think it is. We think we want to present people with a possible future so they can live great. But imagine being a kid, you don't really care about your dad going out there and making heaps of money.
Exactly.
What you want is your dad. You want him for the person who he is today. And I think that that is where a lot of people are misguided in life and think that money is the key to everything. But the truth is, it's just having people around you who want you to be who you are today. Like, that's really the secret to life. Like, it's the reason why, and we feel like we're doing everything for a reason, but sometimes we have that reason already, you know. In my personal life at the moment of who I am doing everything for my mum and my dad. Like, I'm doing things now to make them proud of I am trying to make myself proud. I am trying to become a high achieving individual, but I'm already enough for my mum and for my dad, for my brother and for my sister. Who I am today is perfect. You know, I can be better, can be great, but in their eyes, they're not after that. I'm the perfect son in the in the sense that I am me. I am born. I can always be better. I can always treat my mum better. I'm not saying anything to do with that, but she's not asking me to. That's for myself. You know what I mean? And what's more important, the vision that we have of ourselves or the vision that the people that we love have of us, because that's 10 eyes compared to 2. You know, that's who we are. We're not really our own perspective. We are the perspective of the people who love us more than anything. And if I was to give anything at the end of this podcast, it's something that I've heard recently. It's that another study, like you mentioned, studied 3 types of individuals, and they studied them across every avenue they could. They studied them across business, sports, relationships, finance, and like there was something else as well, charity or something like that. But they studied 3 different types of people. The person who was completely selfish and did everything for himself and clawed his way to the top, leaving no room for empathy, just like it's just my world, dog eat dog, pushing people down on his way up. And then there was a second category of people who did things in their life for trade, mutual beneficial things. Like, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. They built a network of people around them who helped benefit themselves and each other, you know, which is a normal way to live life. And then there was a third type of person who only did things in service of others above himself or herself first. So the person who clawed himself to the top, it's pretty obvious he got to the top the fastest and he became the most successful. It is what it is. The person who traded lived a good, comfortable life and he got there too. But the person who did things for the selflessness of their own heart overpassed them all. That person became more successful, lived a happier life, and had a better community of people around them, because I think it comes back to that same point of relation to the person like Patrick Bet-David who built that business and decided to bring the people up there with him. You know, it was because the solo endeavor is easy to know what your future is going to be, because we can manifest our own future. We can dream big, we can pray for it, and we can work towards it, and we know we're going to get it. But that's a limit of our imagination. That's only a final destination that we've decided to put a pin in that we know we're going to get to. We don't know if that's going to come with hardship afterwards. We don't know if it's going to mean that no one else wants to be with us when we're there. But the person who did things for other people in every single form of realm of endeavor in life, they always lived a better life, longevity, than those who didn't before them.
Just like that concept, the African proverb, you can go, what is it? I want to get this word for it. So it's like, you can go fast by yourself, or you can go far together.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's major. I'm gonna write that down when I'm editing this later.
It's that's why for me it's all about relationships, and for me it's just like, even if I die with 0 in my account, what would bring me more joy is to know that, because at the end of the day it can be taken at any time. We've known this, like there's been dynasties of empires that have had billions of trillions, like more wealth than you can ever imagine. It's just been taken overnight, you know.
Yeah.
So and we can go down the rabbit hole of like different kingdoms, like Babylon, Medo, Persia, etc. But just the biggest beauty for me would be for my wife and kids, and then everyone around me who I've touched can be like, no, that guy was a genuinely good person who genuinely loved people. Like he was the sort of guy who was in good interest for everyone he came across. For me, that's a good life.
Yeah. That's bliss. That's all we should ever really want. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's nice to have our dreams and our passions and our pursuits and our greatness, and I'm still going to keep them. Don't trust me. I'm not getting rid of them. I'm going to get everything I want in life. But it's also nice to know that if I'm going to do it, I have to do it by benefiting the lives of other people first. You know what I mean? And that's responsibility at the end of the day. That's being a husband, that's being a father, that's being a good son, that's being a good friend, being a good employee. You know what I mean? You have to be these things and then juggle yourself. Then you got to be a good servant of God. And then once you do that, then you can be the best version of yourself, you know?
Definitely.
It's crazy. But look, to wrap this podcast up, and I'm only wrapping it up because we have to. It's been long enough at this point, but I'll ask you the same question. Ask everyone that comes on. And that's that if someone came to you because they were feeling depressed, mostly because they were just lost, what advice would you give to that person?
I would say someone who's down and out. One bit of me just wants to say like, harden up, mate.
Yeah, I know.
But then the other side, which I would say, I would tell that guy to shut up. And the other side, I would say, I'll probably say to the person, the only thing that comes to mind is just like, just close your eyes and ask. Ask the man upstairs. That's what I would say. Someone like down and out, I'm like, ask the man upstairs. Like no matter what I can say to you, it's not really going to have an impact. But whether you're young, whether you're old, it's just like that's the best communicator for you. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Oh, that's a great answer. I every week there's a brand new answer. No answer has ever been the same, and it's so diversified in forms of other people's wisdom. You know, I believe everyone's right. You know, it's just interesting to know how other people would guide other people through that same situation. And if people are going to guide each other through that situation, why not go to the highest form of guidance in the first place? Yeah,
but I would definitely reinforce it with the whole idea that I care about you. Let's say if it's a close mate, I care about you, but there's someone else who cares about you more than I would ever, because your situation is unique to your situation. No matter what I say, I may have had a breakup with my girlfriend. You've had a breakup with your girlfriend. It's a completely different situation. The way you've taken, the way I've taken it, completely. So for me, it's just like you're loved and cherished. You have a lot of people around you that also love you and cherish you. That's what I would say. Like, you know, you have family and whatnot that love you and cherish you, but you as a person just know that you can like just close your eyes and just ask. I know you may not believe in it, or you may do, whatever the case is, but just close your eyes and just say like, why me? That's what I would say to the person. Like, just close your eyes and just ask. That's what helped for me. Just close your eyes and just ask. Like, just the man upstairs. I wouldn't say God or anything, because you know most people get like, fuzzy. I don't know. Like they get a lot. What's the term? Like they get a lot of freaked out from like the whole concept of God. Yeah. So I would just say, just close your eyes and just speak to him and just give it a crack. Like I'm sure what's the worst that could happen? You have silence. But and I would say to them, but I guarantee you definitely have a response. Like if you just speak to the man upstairs, I guarantee you it's no doubt in my mind that you'll get a response.
That's cool, eh? And that's the coolest part about God in the first place. Whatever God you choose to believe in, or whether you don't believe it or not, if you just close your eyes and ask, he's there to listen. You don't even have to believe he's real. If you just close your eyes and ask, you might think you told yourself the answer, but you're getting the answer. Yeah.
Asking you shall receive.
Yeah, damn. Love it, dude. Love it. Well, dude, I couldn't thank you enough for coming and doing this episode with me in the first place, eh?
Thanks, Jake. Honestly, it was the utmost pleasure. I really enjoyed my time with you here at Doxcast.
Gang, I'm going to clip that, bro. I'm putting that out there. Paid to add that one right there. Nah, but I am. There's a lot of things we didn't talk about that we did mention. As I said, I wouldn't be able to go over everything that we touched base on before we started the podcast, but I'm interested in your traveling and your mindset and everything that's coming before your way. I'm curious about business adventures you've been on in the past, what led to this experience you're in now with Elite Branding, what it has in the future. Like, there's so much things I want to talk to you about, but we'll just have to save it all for next time.
Yeah.
And we'll catch up a bit later on. We'll do a part 2 to this episode,
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I was just going to ask you, are we doing part 2? Like,
yeah,
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, dude, I appreciate the effort coming out here today. It's been amazing sitting down with you. Couldn't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, gang. Well, for everyone listening, thank you for making it to the end of the episode. It was another amazing episode this week. There'll be another amazing episode next week. That's all right.
Shawty catch a vibe, yeah, I had to put her on. Bought a 2-seater, yeah, we headed for the sun. Shawty going high, I ain't tripping for the funds. Yeah, I won't start, I ain't tripping, I'm a stunt.
Can't give it out props,